The dawn over Meereen poured itself in amber ribbons across the still smoldering pyramids, gilding broken bricks and the faint gray of spent smoke. Tyrion Lannister stood at the edge of the Great Pyramid's highest balcony, a filigree goblet forgotten in his hand. Far below, the city murmured awake, distant vendors beating dust from their awnings, unsaddled camels grumbling in alleyways, sailors' voices carrying from the harbors where the fires of the slavers' fleet. Now nothing but blackened ribs floated like ominous memories upon the tide. For the first time since the shrouded sea had vomited him onto Essos' shores, Tyrion experienced something dangerously close to contentment. A brittle peace, yes, one negotiated by dragons, but peace all the same. Yet a peculiar unease coiled inside him, familiar as the ache in his leg on cold mornings. He could not name its source until the breeze changed and bore a scorch of sulfur up the pyramid's side. Wings thundered beyond sight. The shadow that crossed the balcony was vast enough to swallow him whole. Instinct sent his wine goblet clattering. Primal terror urged him to flee, but Tyrion did not move. A curious stillness rooted him to the sandstone. Drogon banked out of the dawn, black wings knifing the sunrise. His immense body momentarily eclipsed the balconies stacked below, and the wind of his passage fluttered carpets and awnings, overturning amphorae that cracked against stone. Tyrion's breath caught. Dragons had never been his fear. They had been his childhood enchantment, whispers on crackling parchment beneath covers, while candles guttered dangerously near silken sheets in Lannisport. The great beast circled once, twice, deliberate, measuring. Tyrion's mind raced with half-remembered passages of Valyrian, with tales of the old dragon lords, and the rituals of bonding, each requiring wild courage, perhaps a pinch of madness. Drogon's red-gold eyes flicked toward him, and the dwarf of Casterly Rock felt as insignificant as an ant beneath a god's scrutiny. Then Drogon folded his wings and plummeted. The balcony shuddered when talons like ebony scythes clanged against its edge. Tyrion staggered but held his ground, and dust billowed. Drogon's breath, hot as kiln-vented flame, washed over him. The dragon's scent, char, iron, sweet rot, filled Tyrion's nostrils. Each exhalation hummed with subterranean fire. Tyrion swallowed. "Good morning." He managed in Valyrian no more polished than barn door hinges. He inclined his head. One did not bow to lions in the wild. One met their gaze without flinching. Old Maester Yandal's treatise on predatory hierarchies surfaced in his thoughts, absurdly comforting. Drogon tilted his wedge-shaped head, as though curious that this small creature neither fainted nor fled. The dragon's nostrils flared, sampling Tyrion's scent. Smoke curled from teeth, the color of volcanic glass. Behind Tyrion, sandals slapped stone as Missandei burst onto the balcony. "My?" A draconic rumble silenced her. Tyrion did not take his eyes from Drogon's. He heard guards scuffling, the hiss of drawn spears. "Hold," he said softly, more to the dragon than to the men. His heart hammered. If Drogon recognized hostility, he might leap from the parapet and boil them all in dragon flame. Drogon's pupils narrowed to slits. Tyrion saw himself mirrored. Small, pale, slightly ridiculous, amid dusky red. Tiny flames licked between fangs. Embers danced in the beast's throat. The dragon lowered his head. A whisper of air stirred Tyrion's curls. The gesture was neither threat nor attack. It was a question. Tyrion's mouth went dry. Daenerys had spoken of her dragons as children. Yet they were sovereign hungers wrapped in scale and sinew. What question did Drogon ask? Why do you smell of bitter leaf and fear? Why do you persist in shaking your chains of wine and wit when the world scorches? Or perhaps it was simpler. Who are you, truly? He answered, without words. Tyrion extended a trembling hand, palm upturned. Missandei gasped. A white petal of sound whipped away by the wind. Drogon's head dipped further, until the ridges of his crown hovered within reach. The heat that radiated from his skin, scaled anthracite veined with faint crimson, felt like standing before an open forge. Tyrion's fingers twitched over black scales and settled. The surface was hard as armor, yet alive with subtle flecks and shiver. Tiny motes of ash drifted from between plates like snowflakes birthed in hell. A memory surfaced. His first pony, its frightened eyes when he'd entered the stall, the moment he whispered nonsense comfort and laid a hand on its shivering neck. That fragile bridge between boy and beast felt much the same now, except this beast could swallow the pony and the stable besides. Drogon rumbled again, softer. Something almost like a sigh. Then Tyrion felt it, a pulse beneath scale, a slow thunder that resonated up his arm and into bone, into breath, into thought. The dragon's heartbeat. He imagined it as a molten star lodged within Drogon's chest, hammering out life to titanic wings. Tyrion's own heart answered, not in volume or power, but in steady rhythm, in defiance of every terror that had defined his journey. Chains in Volantis, whips in Yunkai, the pits of Meereen. In that shared cadence, he sensed acknowledgement, acceptance. He dared to stroke the ridge above Drogon's eye. The scale was smooth, almost silky where ash had been polished away by flight through cloud and flame. Drogon's lids drooped, and the beast's head nudged into Tyrion's touch with the subtlety of a cat seeking more scratches. The air in Tyrion's lungs left him in a breathless laugh. He became aware of the hush behind. The guards slack-jawed, their spears lowering of their own accord. Steps rang from the doorway. Grey Worm's voice taut as bowstring. "Move aside." The unsullied commander advanced, but Drogon's tail flicked, a casual sweep that shattered a sandstone pillar and sent shards skittering like startled crabs. Grey Worm froze mid-step, eyes wide. "Perhaps," Tyrion called over his shoulder, still stroking Drogon. "We might do without stabbing the Queen's most puissant parcel of teeth and fire, yes?" Grey Worm hesitated, gaze darting from the dwarf to the dragon. Missandei tugged at his arm. "He is unharmed," she whispered. No sudden movements. Tyrion smiled to himself. Unharmed, yes, but changed. Drogon inhaled, ribs expanding under Tyrion's hand, then exhaled a plume of dark smoke that drifted above the balcony like a pennon. The dragon unfurled his wings halfway, vast sails catching dawnlight, and crouched, presenting the curve of his neck. Tyrion's breath caught anew. There was invitation in that posture, unmistakable. His knees wobbled. "You cannot be serious," he murmured. Drogon flicked an ear-like spike. Tyrion considered every recorded death of a dragon rider unworthy or unlucky. Valyrians dashed upon stone outcroppings, charred by misjudged flame, swallowed by their own mounts when madness struck. He was no Targaryen. His blood ran Lannister gold, not Valyrian silver. Yet myths persisted of rare outsiders who had bonded with dragons in the freehold's waning centuries. Men and women touched by something intangible. Wit, bravery, desperation. And Tyrion possessed all three in abundance. He chuckled under his breath. The gods love a joke. He grasped a serrated spine, hoisted himself upon the sinuous neck through sheer stubbornness and a bruising of knees. Scale edges bit into his palms. His crooked leg protested with bright sparks of pain. A childhood spent falling from horses proved unexpectedly useful. He knew how to cling. He settled just behind Drogon's skull. The beast straightened, and a sweeping vertigo gripped Tyrion as Meereen dropped away beneath him. Up here, the world felt different. Air thinner, charged with invisible currents of heat. He sensed Drogon's mood, an impatient exhilaration that crackled like storm-racked sky. "Very well," Tyrion muttered, gripping a spike. "Take me where you will." Great ill-tempered miracle. Drogon launched. The balcony vanished in a concussion of wind. Tyrion's stomach loped sideways as gravity grudgingly released them to the upward thrust of wings. Dragons had no saddle. Every heartbeat was wagered on strength of thighs and stubborn grip. Tyrion clamped knees around muscle corded beneath scale and pressed his belly to Drogon's vertebrae. The city shrank into a patchwork of terracotta roofs and shadowed alleys. The Skahazadon River glittered like molten glass. Ships' masts pricking the horizon. Tyrion whooped. A ragged sound whipped away in the hurricane of passage. For a heartbeat, he felt every inch the drunkard fool clinging to a god. Then Drogon tilted a wing, and they soared above the harbor mouth where the corpses of the master's fleet still smoldered. Birds spiraled from rigging. Sailors on surviving decks pointed, their shouts lost in distance. A hot salt wind soaked Tyrion's face. tasting of liberty. Higher. The sun fully breached the east, igniting Drogon's black scales so each curve burned with molten crimson. Tyrion risked a glance down. Mist veiled the city. The distant pyramids poked through like golden teeth. Burning warrens mineralized to nubs. Scorched scribbles of conflict faint in morning's hush. A realization unfurled in Tyrion's chest. He, a half-mad dwarf written off by father, sister kingdoms, now rode the mightiest dragon alive. In that instant, fate's crooked grin mirrored his own. Drogon banked inland, away from Meereen. The wind's howl tempered into an almost musical keen. Tyrion adjusted his grip. Somewhere below lay the vast pasture lands that once fed Yunkai, now charred where dragonfire had fallen in battle. Beyond, the red waste shimmered on horizons like a sea of ruby sand. He leaned forward, pressing his cheek against warm scale. "Where are we going, my monstrous friend?" Drogon answered with a powerful downstroke that sent them arrowing toward a series of basalt spires jutting from plains beyond the city. A deserted shrine to forgotten gods, carved by ancient Kaskari hands. Broken statues cracked the ground like toppled kings. The dragon alighted atop the tallest spire, his claws gouging stone as easily as soft cheese. Tyrion's bones rattled from the impact. He dared release his hold only when Drogon settled, wings furled. Wind whistled through crags. Tyrion slid to the ground, onto a broad ledge the dragon claimed as perch. His legs quivered, but he remained upright. "Well flown," he breathed. "Exceptional service. I would tip you handsomely, but I fear you lack pockets." Drogon chuffed, a gout of smoke swirling. Tyrion peered over the edge. The drop was fatal. Shards of basalt like teeth waited far below. But the vantage offered sweeping sightlines in every direction. The shivering sea to the north, the ghost green of the Dothraki Sea to the west, the marble glint of Meereen's pyramids southward. Nowhere for enemies to approach unseen. Stillness settled between dwarf and dragon, broken only when Drogon's eyelids drooped halfway. Tyrion laughed softly. "Tuckered out, are we? I imagine toting even my slight frame is exhausting. Allow me to lighten the mood with a story." He paced along the spine, careful of the drop. Once upon a time, there was a little lion born half a lion tall. The lion's papa scoffed at him, and his sister sharpened claws daily, and the realm expected nothing of him but mischief and ill fortune. So the little lion sharpened his mind instead, for that was one blade his size could wield. "Mandem stereo." Drogon's nostrils flared, a smoky sigh escaped, ruffling Tyrion's curls. In time, the little lion learned barrels of wine hold easier company than lords, and whores' smiles easier warmth than kin. But for all his cleverness, he was uncertain of one thing. Where belonged a creature so ill-fitted to castle corridors? Then he dreamt of dragons, great and terrible, but wondrous, for they feared no gate nor gabe. He smiled sadly. That dream led him here. He thought Drogon might have closed his eyes, but one conspiratorial slit of red remained fixed on him. A hum of satisfaction rippled through the beast's hide, as though pleased with the story thus far. Tyrion seated himself, legs dangling over the abyss. "And what now? Shall I conquer cities for you? Burn my enemies as you burned the masters?" Hard to draw a line once one wields such fire. Perhaps we simply watch the sun rise and think of nothing. Menacez-moi. For a while they did precisely that. Dawn advanced into morning. Heat shimmered over sand flats. Vultures wheeled in distant spirals. Tyrion contemplated how improbable it was that he, scourge of his father, should find solace atop a claw-scarred spire beside a dragon. Yet reality scraped at the edges. Daenerys died. She would wake soon and find her fiercest child missing, and her hand along with him. She might fear betrayal. Worse, she might be hurt. Tyrion's chest tightened at the thought of her gaze, that crucible of trust and fury turning upon him with suspicion. He stood, brushing dust from breeches. "Time to go home," he said. Drogon lifted his head but did not move otherwise. Tyrion gestured. "Back to Meereen, lest your mother worry." The dragon's jaw parted. A guttural growl rolled free, echoing off spires. Tyrion blinked. "Come now. I promise to ensure the city's council meets before noon. And I imagine Daenerys will want to confirm her rule does not unravel while her dragon gallivants." Drogon's growl deepened, vibrating stone beneath Tyrion's boots. The dwarf fell silent. He recalled tales of wild dragons refusing their riders, of Balerion's fury when Maegor attempted to bend him after Aegon's death. But Drogon was not refusing Tyrion, he sensed that. The dragon refused obedience to any schedule but his own. There was a subtle shift in the air, a prickle along Tyrion's spine. Drogon's wings unfurled. It occurred to Tyrion then that the spire, remote and high, might serve another purpose. Privacy for an oath unseen, a choice unburdened by court's eyes. He approached the great head once more. "Do you mean to keep me?" he asked softly. "Am I to ride with you on shadows until the world changes shape?" Drogon huffed, warm smoke swirling around Tyrion's shoulders like a mantle. The dwarf closed his eyes. In childhood dreams, dragons spoke in riddles. In waking life, they spoke in motion. He must answer in kind. He climbed back atop the waiting neck. They skirted the high thermals, rising until Tyrion's ears popped and clouds trailed like torn silk below. Cold bit his cheeks, stole tears from his eyes. Drogon streaked through sun-drenched vapor, and within white billows, the world muted to a hush, broken only by beat of wings and Tyrion's ragged breath. When they burst above the cloud of sea, the sky stretched vast and impossibly blue, unmarred by bird or banner. Drogon released a trumpet of flame that dissipated into sparks before it could mar the heavens. Tyrion laughed, giddy with altitude and awe. His fears of falling slipped away, not because risk vanished, but because magnitude dwarfed it. Falling seemed a trivial footnote compared to riding the firmament. Minutes? Or hours? Later, Drogon tipped a wing and descended. They pierced cloud again, moisture soaking Tyrion's beard. The red waste unfurled below, an unending desert puckered by dunes and the fossilized bones of forgotten caravans. Far ahead, a black ribbon shimmered, a caravan road hugging the foothills of a modest mountain range. At a crook in that road sat a half-ruined fortress. Squat towers, weather-blasted and sand-swallowed. Drogon's descent targeted the crumbling edifice. Tyrion frowned. He knew this place from a map Daenerys kept. Kathazakar, once a Giscari way station before the Doom. Stories claimed its cellars held a spring of sweet water, guarded by statues of iron snakes. But no scouts had reported signs of life in a century. Drogon landed in the fortress's central courtyard with a clatter of loosened masonry. Tyrion dismounted stiffly, knees trembling from the long flight. Sand skittered across cracked flagstones sculpted with faded glyphs. A broken archway led to inner keep shaded by leaning walls. "Why here?" he muttered. Drogon sniffed the wind, then prowled toward the archway. Tyrion followed, though each footstep seemed absurdly small next to talon gouges. Inside, shade embraced him. The smell of dust thickened. Yet beneath it lingered a cooler note: water. Tyrion's tongue felt glued to his palate. He realized he had not drunk since dawn. A staircase curved downward. Drogon could not fit, but he craned neck to peer. Tyrion touched the beast's flank in reassurance and descended alone. Below, the air shifted from dry to damp. The stair spat him into a cavernous hall he recognized from travelers' tales. Stone serpents coiled around pillars, iron tongues protruding. At the chamber's center, moonlight from a cracked skylight illuminated a pool of inky water. From its surface rose a singular object, gleaming faintly beneath dust of centuries. It was a chain harness, dragon leather straps sewn with gold wire, buckles of polished obsidian. A saddle. Tyrion approached, heart thundering louder than Drogon's had. Stitched across the breastband was High Valyrian script. Shiraya's Saldrizas, to bind the dragon. His fingers traced the lettering. The leather remained supple, preserved by the cave's cool air and some ancient oil's lingering perfume. A sudden image flashed, himself seated upon Drogon secure, hands free to wield crossbow or spear, journeying wherever sky met horizon. Tyrion exhaled shakily. "You cunning monster," he whispered, though Drogon waited above, beyond earshot. "You brought me to your attack room." He hefted the harness. Though sized for a formidable rider, it weighed less than expected. Valyrian steel sewn for rings, perhaps. Flexible, elegant. Designed for a Targaryen prince, no doubt. Never used since doom shattered Valyria's roads and riders. Carrying it felt sacrilegious. Yet destiny seldom waited for proper priests to officiate. Back in the courtyard, Drogon lay sprawled like a mountain basking in sun. His eyes followed Tyrion with cat-like patience as the dwarf set down the harness. "You intend me to wear this," Tyrion said. "Very presumptuous." Drogon rumbled agreement. It took longer than Tyrion liked to don the saddle's rigging, adjusting straps to his shorter frame, cursing each tangling loop. Sweat darkened his linen as midday scorched overhead. Yet Drogon remained still, occasionally nudging a strap with gentle insistence. When at last Tyrion clambered up, buckles clicked into ringlets along Drogon's shoulders. The seat molded to his thighs, anchoring him with surprising comfort. A pair of reins, ornamental more than practical, hung within reach, though Tyrion knew dragons obeyed thought and knee far better than leather tug. He took the reins anyway. "Let's see if old ghosts can fly." Drogon roared, a cannonade reverberating off broken towers. Towering plumes of dust erupted as he leapt skyward. Tyrion's back pressed into the saddle as Gigi horses tore a cry from his throat. Yet, the harness held, and for the first time riding a dragon felt less like clinging to a comet's tail and more like partnership. They wheeled north. Tyrion spotted a distant gleam. The Skahazadon bending like a jade serpent through tan plains. They angled along its course. "You mean to show me your dominion?" Tyrion murmured against the wind. He pictured the map again. Korth east, Lazar south, the Bones to the north. Beyond Bones lay the Vale of Arryn, though countless leagues of desert and steppe separated Essos from Westeros. Was Drogon dreaming of those distant cliffs? A memory pricked. Daenerys confided her fear that dragons yearned for home unconsciously. Might cross the world seeking ancestral valleys. If Drogon pursued such instinct, and dragged Tyrion along, what then? The question tangled Tyrion's stomach until a new sight claimed focus. Smoke columns ahead, rising from a caravan, shattered across the riverbank. Wagons lay scattered, some aflame. Small figures, men in leathers, some atop horses, darted among the wreckage, herding prisoners toward the dunes. "Slavers," Tyrion growled. Dothraki perhaps, but their banners bore the school brand of Astapor's reborn masters, raiding despite Daenerys' edicts. Drogon's growl thrummed through Tyrion's bones. The dragon? Angled wings. "No quarter," Tyrion agreed. Drogon stooped. The first gout of flame erupted like sunrise concentrated to a lance, sweeping a row of mounted spearsmen. Horses screamed, men turned to silhouettes of amber glass within pyres of sand-colored fire. Tyrion leaned with the dive. Saddle straps creaked. Reins soon forgotten. They banked, and Tyrion glimpsed terror-struck eyes reflecting dragon flame. The remaining slavers scattered. Some tried to swim the river, armor dragging them under. Others knelt, arms lifted in futile supplication. Drogon roared again, but Tyrion laid a hand on warm scale. "Enough. Spare the captives." The dragon huffed smoke. Flames dissipated. Ash drifted like bleak confetti. Drogon settled upon a crumpled wagon, crushing splintered wood under claw. Tyrion dismounted, boots sinking into scorched sand. Slaves, men, women, a few children, huddled within wagon shadows, faces smeared with dust and fear. Tyrion tugged loose a slaver's, dropped scimitar, severed the nearest prisoner's chains. "Go," he urged in Hiskari. "You are free. The Queen holds Meereen for any who seek refuge." Blank stares met him. He remembered then, freedom is a word too vast to trust when spoken by masters. He gestured toward Drogon. "He will not harm you. Gather what belongings remain and travel south along the river. Tell those you meet that Daenerys Stormborn's reign extends beyond city walls." "Missektingal." One man bowed so low his forehead touched sand. Others murmured thanks between sobs. Tyrion pressed waterskins into shaking hands where he could. When at last he remounted, The scent of charred flesh clung to his clothes. Drogon launched once more. They flew in silence, broken only by wing beat. Smoke backlit the horizon. Below, freed captives became ants marching toward an uncertain dawn. Tyrion's heart felt heavy and luminous, full of contradictions. He had tasted vengeance's fire, how intoxicating, and tempered it with mercy, albeit incomplete. What would Daenerys think? Would she approve, or fear? This new alliance empowered him too greatly. He must tread carefully. Dragons magnify virtues and failings alike. As afternoon waned, Drogon turned toward Meereen. Tyrion exhaled. Ahead the city rose golden, its flags snapping. Faint horns pealed, signals of arrival, or perhaps warning. A dark speck swept from the city's apex. Rhaegal, green wings glistening, answering his brother's call. Below him, Tyrion could almost feel the pulse of startled hearts when people realized who rode Drogon. Word would race along streets faster than arrow flight, the dwarf hand astride the black dragon. Rhaegal circled close, curious. Drogon emitted a rasping bark, and the green dragon fell in behind like a sibling obeying elder kin. Together they glided over Meereen's central plaza where thousands gathered, tiny faces upturned in awe and dread. Drogon landed gracefully before the Great Pyramid's grand stair. Stone cracked but did not shatter. Tyrion dismounted with theatrical dignity he hoped masked trembling knees. The plaza went silent as tombs. Then, a ripple of voices, whispers, shouts, a swelling tide. Atop the stairs stood Daenerys Targaryen, silver hair streaming, indigo robes snapping in hot wind. Ser Jorah and Grey Worm flanked her like statues ready to spring, her violet eyes fixed on Tyrion. Searching, luminous, uncertain. Between them lay a gulf wider than deserts, bridged only by trust earned in shared war councils, in sullen nights debating ethics of fire and blood. Now that trust quivered upon a dragon's shadow. Tyrion advanced alone, dust circling his boots. He stopped midway up, bowed deep, then raised his head. "Your Grace," he said, voice projecting though heart pounded. "I return your child and bring tidings." Daenerys' gaze flicked from him to Drogon and back. She descended a single step. Her voice carried. "Does my child obey you now?" "I obey him," Tyrion replied, smile faint. "Us all-wise men obey the truths that make them small." A murmur rippled through assembled freedmen, unsullied, Dothraki, nobles. Daenerys descended another step, expression a blend of relief and wonder. Tyrion's knees wished to buckle, but he stood firm. "With your leave, your grace, I would counsel tonight, for much has changed this day." She nodded once, a queen granting audience. "Tonight." Tyrion exhaled. Behind, Drogon's shadow shifted as the dragon folded wings. Rhaegal lighted nearby, screeching softly. The plaza slowly breathed again. But Tyrion knew the true conversation awaited in private, where hearts uncloaked. In that room, he must navigate not only the mother of dragons' awe, but her fear. Fear that power might slip beyond her grasp. He must reassure her this bond served her cause, not undermined it. As he walked the remaining steps, sunlight caught the harness's gold wire and threw sparks across sandstone. Each spark felt like a promise and a warning. Fire harnessed is fire still. Word count: 5,170. Tiny key. The marble floor of the Queen's private audience chamber felt cool beneath Tyrion's boots, a small mercy after the furnace of the plaza. Incense tinted with myrrh coiled from clay braziers, clinging to the air in thin, translucent ribbons. 4 braziers, 4 flames. Daenerys' subtle way of reminding every visitor that she commanded the elements which had forged her dynasty. Tonight, they seemed brighter, as though reflecting the presence of the 2 dragons coiled upon the terrace outside, their low, rumbling breaths sounding like distant thunder. Tyrion waited at the center of the chamber, the dragon's saddle's polished obsidian buckles glinting on his shoulders. It felt odd to enter Daenerys' sanctum, armed with nothing but a harness, yet odder still to sense a consciousness, drowsy but vast, lingering just beyond the double doors. Drogon dozed, but even in sleep, a fragment of his awareness hovered around Tyrion like a phantom guardian. Daenerys appeared on the inner balcony, half obscured by a twisted column carved with scenes of Giscari conquest. Moonlight drenched her silver hair, lending her an unearthly glow. About her shoulders lay a mantle of turquoise silk feathered with black drake scales, the same cloak she had worn to the Yunkai negotiations. But her gaze tonight bore different storms. She descended the spiral stairs slowly, holding a chalice that clinked faintly with ice. The silence stretched until Tyrion's ears filled with the thump of his own heart. He fought the impulse to fill the void with jokes. Levity would clang against whatever tension rested here. She reached him and extended the chalice. He accepted, surprised by the chill of the cup. "Mulled wine," she said softly. "With pomegranate peel and mint, you rode far without water. Drink." He drank, tasting spice and something sharp, alive, an SOC vintage he had yet to sample. "Thank you, Your Grace. Drogon brought you back." She circled him once, eyes skimming the harness. "With a gift of ages old." "He brought me to the gift." Tyrion managed a tight smile. "I merely accepted it to avoid further offense." At that, a flicker of amusement lit her violet eyes, brief as candle allspark, gone before it could warm the air. "Do you remember what you told me the night I named you Hand?" "I told you many things that night," he said, "some of which were sensible. The rest drowned in half a cask of Astapori red." She moved to a cedar table laden with parchment maps and colored glass stones. Her hand hovered over a green stone, a mark indicating the unsullied garrison by the river, but did not touch. "You told me I must inspire love, but that fear would serve if love proved fleeting. Now I find Drogon, my fiercest child, has chosen another. Should I feel fear or love?" Tyrion set the chalice aside. "If it is fear, then we are both lost. If it is love, perhaps we build something stronger." He paused. "But love for a dragon and love for a queen need not be mutually exclusive. Drogon follows his nature. I follow my oath." "And which nature is that, Lord Tyrion? The nature of a Lannister? A dwarf scorned by his family? Or a man reborn in fire?" He almost laughed at the catalogue of possible selves. "I suspect it is the nature of a survivor, Your Grace. One who has discovered that survival alone reigns hollow unless bound to purpose." Daenerys studied him. "And Drogon gives you purpose?" "He reminds me how swiftly the world can be remade." Tyrion touched the reins draped at his hip. "And how swiftly it may burn. Without wisdom to temper flame, cities crumble, innocents perish. I would not see you remembered as another Maegor the Cruel, or worse, as a conqueror whose dragons tore her dream to tatters." Her chin lifted ever so slightly. "You would guide me, with every breath left in my stunted lungs." Silence again, punctuated by a muffled roar outside. Vehicles shifting, perhaps, unsettled by distant city sounds. Daenerys seemed to weigh possibilities behind her eyes. "I have summoned the council," she said at last. "Grey Worm, Missandei, Jorah, Varys, those who remain. At dawn we will discuss what must come next." She gestured to the harness. "Wear that. Let them see." Tyrion inclined his head. "As you command." She turned toward the terrace but hesitated. "Tyrion." He looked up. "There is a legend in Valyria," she said quietly, "that when a dragon chooses a rider outside its blood, change greater than conquest follows. Sometimes doom, sometimes deliverance. The freehold practiced foresight, augurs, glass candles, the like. They called such bonds Zalmorian, shifting of the world's axis. His mouth felt suddenly dry. "I pray our axis favors life. I pray it favors freedom," she whispered, and stepped into night toward her children. Dawn bled pale gold through high windows. The council assembled in the throne room's echoing breath, a disparity of silks, armor, and uncertain hearts. Tyrion stood beside Daenerys' carved throne, not seated upon the polished black steps as usual, but upright in the dragon saddle, reins coiled at his belt. The chamber's hush thickened each time eyes slid from queen to dragon lord in miniature, and back again. Varys arrived last, sliding through the great doorway like a silvery eel. His expression, usually serene, warred between delight and consternation. He bowed low. "Most intriguing developments, Your Grace." Missandei opened proceedings with the day's roster of petitions: grain shortages in the outer districts, minor riots where freedmen clashed with former pit fighters over weapons caches, unrest among the Messene merchants complaining of new import tariffs. Tyrion listened, but his mind flicked along the saddle straps biting his shoulders, the faint pressure of Drogon's presence humming beyond the walls. The weight of every gaze. When Missandei finished, Daenerys' eyes found Grey Worm. Status of the Yunkish front. The unsullied commander stepped forward, armor pristine. Spies report Yunkai starves. Their allies from New Gis withdrew ships. Some masters plot flight across the summer sea. There is talk of assassins hired to strike your reign. Let them come. Ser Jorah rasped, hand restive on our hilt. His graying beard bristled like a hedgehog's back. We will wring necks. Tyrion cleared his throat. Necks are plentiful. Our food stores are not. We cannot feed Meereen and every slave fleeing these besieged cities forever. He gestured at the map, tapping the patchwork of colored stones. We must project stability. Convince neighboring realms that trade with us is safer than war. Dragons may break sieges, but commerce feeds mouths when ashes cool. Varys spread his soft hands. Wise counsel. Yet the slaver princes of Astapor and Yunkai will never barter in good faith, so long as the symbol of their subjugation coils atop this pyramid. Then perhaps, Daenerys said, we remove the symbol from their nightmares. Eyes snapped to her. Even Tyrion blinked. She rose. Drogon flies where he wills. Rhaegal and Viserion often follow. Let the slavers see that their walls, their ships, their chains avail them nothing. But we do not need to raise them all. One strike, surgical. Cut off the head, the body dies. Ser Jorah frowned. You speak of assassination. A dragon's shadow, she corrected. If Drogon and his rider appear above Yunkai, who among their councils will linger at the bargaining table? Grey Worm stiffened. You would risk the hand in enemy sky? I would risk him everywhere, she replied. As he risks himself for me. Tyrion touched a buckle reflexively. If your aim is intimidation, Your Grace, allow me this. We fly at dawn, circle Yunkai's harbors, burn no ship. But melt their gates, leave them time to consider surrender. A single pass, enough to carve memory into stone. Ser Jorah exhaled, and he measured fist. And Tywin Lannister once won. War is simply marching, Varys murmured. He need not spill blood if his enemies bled dread. Daenerys nodded slow. So dawn after next. Enough time to prepare the city's grain supply in case Yunkai retaliates by cutting trade. Tyrion bowed. Your will. Council turned to lesser matters. Tyrion responded where appropriate, but a low hum underscored his every word. Drogon's breathing filtered through stone. He never truly left him now. It felt like having half a heart outside the body. At times it was comforting. At others, it threatened to crack his skull from inside with magnitude. When the council adjourned, Missandei brushed his sleeve. You will need heavier garb. Air above the desert is cold before sunrise. He smiled. Ever my savior. She met his grin, but her eyes clouded. Many freedmen revere you already. Now they will worship. Worship? Tyrion grimaced. A poor exchange for reason. He softened. Take care they do not starve while we strut with dragons overhead. We will, she said. I'll see the bakers double rations. Tyrion spent the day studying wind charts and caravan of the summer sea maps, but his concentration scattered. At dusk he climbed the pyramid's north face to where Drogon perched upon a sun-baked platform. Rhaegal and Viserion roosted on adjacent ledges, green and cream tails dangling lazily above potted palms reduced to charcoal stumps. Drogon greeted him with a rumble. Tyrion laid a hand on the warm slope of a wing. Mind if I share your bed? He settled against a ridged foreleg. The dragon's breath smelled of char and half-digested horse. He scarcely noticed. The city murmured below. Vendors closing shutters, children chasing goats through alleys, bells tolling when the harbor gates locked for the night. Farther off, the desert flickered with nomad campfires. Tyrion's thoughts drifted to unseen corners. A boy once locked in a cell by his father, screaming as a torch's stub burned low. A sellsword slumped dead in a privy. A girl he loved shot through with purple by his own crossbow. The ghost parade seemed louder tonight. He closed his eyes, listening to Drogon's slow respiration. Past grief felt lighter with each exhale. "Let go," the dragon seemed to say, "or be eaten alive by bones of memory." "I will try," Tyrion whispered. Sleep claimed him in fits, dreams populated by wings. Some golden, some cryptic shapes woven of Valyrian script. He woke once to find himself curled into Drogon's side as though inside an oven. Yet comfort coiled there, undeniable. Pre-dawn chill snapped him awake. A violet blush peeked across the horizon. Servants climbed with torches, and thick riding leathers sewn with wool lining. Tyrion dressed swiftly, his fingers fumbling buckles, breath ghosting in puffs. Grey Worm arrived with a dozen unsullied bearing, long bronze spears tipped with obsidian. "Escort," he explained. "To gate." Tyrion mounted Drogon with the ease of a man half his size. Each step upon scale rang like a coin dropped in a deep well, echoing, infinite. When he settled, Drogon shifted beneath him with anticipation. The saddle straps felt snug, hugging hips and thighs, distributing weight in a way that made even his crooked leg feel steady. "It will be well," Grey Worm said, eyes level with Tyrion's boots. "Try not to let the city burn down before I return." The commander's lips twitched toward a smile. "It will be protected." He struck chest with fist, bowed, and stepped away. Tyrion guided Drogon to the platform's edge. Below, a courtyard swirled with torchlight. Rhaegal and Viserion readying with harnesses of their own, moonlight glinting off bronze fittings. 2 Dothraki riders, Jogo and Ago, would accompany as escorts. Daenerys would remain behind. One dragonless queen might still lead if disaster struck. Drogon leapt. Air swallowed sound, wings unfurled. Quadrangles of lamplight shot past as they banked, spiraling upward into blackness dusted with early stars. Above the lower thermals, Rhaegal and Viserion joined flanking formation. Tyrion signaled with a twist of reins. They ascended along the river, far enough from city walls that watchers would glimpse only silhouettes. Cold bit his cheeks, his knuckles, but exhilaration warmed marrow. He touched the amulet around his neck, a ruby set in gold wrought like a lion's paw. It had belonged to his mother. He whispered a prayer to no god in particular. Hours blurred into rhythmic pulses of wingbeat. The desert beneath shimmered silver under moonset, dunes painting gradients of shadow. They passed caravan tracks dotted with dying campfires, the tiny sparks dwarfed by the brilliant halo creeping on the horizon. The first wildfire pink rays kissed their wingtips as Yunkai crenellated walls emerged. A rough circle broken by 4 gates reinforced in ironwood. Beyond the walls sprawled low clay roofs, plumes of cooking smoke, and, in the harbor, a skeleton fleet. A dozen war galleys and freight barges huddled like cattle behind breakwaiters. Tyrion tugged a rein. Drogon emitted a low growl. Tiredness from the long flight radiated along sinew dodgy. Yet adrenaline spiked them both. Tyrion felt it like a second heartbeat. He angled the dragon into a shallow dive. Trumpets rose from within the city. Thin, frightened. Ballistae crews scrambled on parapets, dwarfed by the dragon shadows sweeping across sunlit ramparts. Their first bolts arced wide, harmless. Fear had fouled calculation. Tyrion guided Drogon along the wall circumference once, making certain every watchman glimpsed black wings blotting daylight. On the second loop, he chose the north gate, an iron-banded contraption older than Volantis's oldest statue. "Now," he breathed. Drogon drew huge breath, chest expanding beneath the saddle straps, and exhaled a lance of jet-downed crimson flame. Stone blackened, iron glowed cherry red, then flashed white, and with a wail like a dying god, the gate sagged, half-molten, collapsing inwards. Smoke geysered upward. At once, Tyrion wheeled skyward. Rhaegal and Viserion took their cue, spewing fire along the outer ramparts, controlled bursts mostly to frighten, Crack stone. Shouts turned, panic screaming. Soldiers flung helms aside and fled deeper into alley mazes. Market stalls caught fire, but the dragons withheld from leveling the city. Tyrion banked again, dipped just above the harbor piers. Slaver ships rocked violently, masts creaking. Sailors dove into brackish water. A single stream of flame across the central pier ignited stacked tar barrels. A sharp explosion rippled and sent a shockwave across anchored vessels. But the ships themselves remained largely intact. Fear, not ashes, would sail back with them. Satisfied, Tyrion signaled withdrawal. The dragons gathered altitude, circling once more so every living soul could imprint the image of three-winged juggernauts ascending in perfect formation. Then they turned southeast, desert wind streaming across wings, leaving Yunkai behind, wreathed in smoke and existential dread. Midday sun beat overhead as they returned to Meereen. Tyrion's limbs trembled with fatigue. Every jostle of Drogon's cadence jarred aching muscles. Yet inner fire rippled, an afterglow of victory. They had spilled remarkably little blood, yet set fear aflame brighter than any corpse pyre. Meereen's harbor horns blared welcome. People thronged rooftops and squares. Cheers rolled upward like thunder overlapping. Dragon banners unfurled on every other balcony. Tyrion glimpsed children waving scraps of colored cloth, their eyes reflecting stars though under midday blaze. Drogon descended to the great pyramid courtyard, wings stirring a whirlwind that flattened torch stands and sent parchments flying across stone. Tyrion's dismount blurred, legs buckled, arms shook. But he stayed upright long enough to bow before Daenerys, who descended the marble stair in fitted white armor crusted with blue gemstones. She studied him, taking inventory, soot smudges on cheeks, cracked lips, reddened eye corners from desert wind. Her gaze flicked to Drogon. No apparent wounds, then back. She smiled, slow, unmistakably proud. "Report," she said. Tyrion straightened. North Gate melted to slag. No casualties among freedmen that I observed. Slaver soldiers fled without order. Harbor crippled psychologically more than physically. Yunkai will spend the week arguing whether to sue for peace or drown in its own panic. Benro, Grey Worm, Jorah, Missandei and Varys formed a half-circle around them. Tyrion heard the whisper ripple through onlookers. The Lannister dragon. Zaldrezo Lannisto. Kashara, the half-height rider. He grimaced inwardly. Soon there would be songs rife with embellishment. Daenerys' voice cut through reverence. "Well flown, rest now. Tonight we feast, but tomorrow we plan our next stroke." Tyrion inclined his head, exhaustion washing over him like a wave. He bowed out gracefully, letting attendants escort him down servant stairs to a cool suite carved behind the pyramid's north face. Formerly a Giscari treasurer's vault. He collapsed onto crisp cotton sheets and slept like a man clubbed by sweet oblivion. Dreams came quickly. Odd mosaics. A lion curling inside a dragon's egg. An iron throne made of molten wine cups. Yunki's melted gate reshaping into his father's stern face, which cracked open to reveal droplet of fire. Through it all thrummed Drogon's heartbeat. Sometimes slow, sometimes galloping like war drums. He woke at sunset to Missandei's gentle knock. A bath awaited. In an antechamber pieced with mother goof pearl tiles, steaming water scented with lemongrass. She left oils and linen, withdrew. Tyrion soaked until his skin pruned, letting hot water leach aches from muscles. Scars from his flogging in Volantis tingled. He flexed his shoulders, testing the harness bruises. When he emerged, a dark red doublet, embroidered with subtle draconic scales in black thread, lay on a cedar bench. A golden pin, set with onyx, a lion rampant, encircled by dragon wings, rested atop. He ran fingers over cold metal, recognizing the craftsmanship of Carthy jewelers. Daenerys must have commissioned it during his slumber. He dressed, affixed the pin near his heart. The feast unfolded in the gallery of tapestries, a long pillared hall lined with woven conquests of old keys. Tables sagged under platters, roasted goat stuffed with apricots, river eels braised in fig wine, pyramidal loaves of honeyed bread. Musicians plucked lutes, Drums thrummed like desert hooves. Candles reflected in polished copper shields hung along walls. Daenerys dined at the high table, seat carved from a single block of lapis lazuli. Tyrion sat to her right, Varys to her left. Across from them, lounging on plush carpets, were Dothraki bloodriders, gnawing charred horse hearts. Unsullied ringed the perimeter, faces expressionless. Toast soared, to the queen, to freedom, to the hand of dragons. Each cup of spiced wine Tyrion accepted with measured sips. He would not risk drunken spectacle tonight. Yet the wine's heat loosed his tongue enough to trade barbs with a beardless Astapori envoy, boasting that his city's canals rivaled Meereen's in beauty. Tyrion conceded graciously, remarking Astapor's bricks were certainly redder, though mainly because they were soaked in its own blood. Laughter, shocked and appreciative, rippled through nobles. Between courses, Daenerys leaned near. "Your scar is healing," she noted, touching the faint cut along his jaw acquired from wind-whipped grit. "Dwarves heal quick," he said. "We're close to the ground. Less distance for the blood to fall." Her lips quirked upward. "You make levity of everything. It is either that or weep." He lifted his goblet. "And I hate watering good wine." Her laughter brightened the chamber. Tyrion caught Varys observing quietly, a sphinx gauging the shifting desert. As dessert arrived, sesame custard served in carved marble cups, the chamber doors opened. A messenger approached the dais, cloak streaked with sand and sweat. He knelt. "Scroll from Volantis, my queen, coded as requested." Daenerys gestured him forward. The messenger offered a clay cylinder, sealed in wax, imprinted with her three-headed sigil. She broke it, unfurled parchment. Her brows knitted. Tyrion set down his spoon. "Ill tidings?" She passed the scroll to him. "Read." The cipher resolved quickly. Simple transposition he had devised weeks prior. His stomach clenched. "Prince Quentyn Martell of Dorne landed at Volantis seeking passage upriver toward you. Claims betrothal, pact, with House Targaryen. Unknown if genuine. Also, Ironborn longships sighted off Slaver's Bay. Unclear allegiance." Tyrion lowered the parchment. Ser Jorah grunted. He knew the Dornish prince's name, having once served him as a guide in Essos. Varys' eyes gleamed. "Another suitor," Tyrion said wryly. "Your popularity grows." Daenerys' expression hardened. "My trust shrinks. Why now?" "Opportunity," Varys murmured. "Dorne ever seeks advantage. They hear the winds." Ser Jorah added, "Prince Quentyn hunts dragons in stories, I told him. He is no threat." The knight's tone bristled protective. Tyrion poured water into his goblet, swirling. "Threat or not, a Dornish claim complicates alliances. And Ironborn ships seldom sail this far south without Iron Price in mind." "Nahaunen," Daenerys considered. "Tomorrow at dawn we send Rhaegal and Viserion to scout the coast. Take Jorah, Grey Worm, unsullied aboard my fastest Dromons. If the Ironborn seek plunder, we meet them at sea." Tyrion noted she did not include him in that company. He felt both relief and pang of exclusion. "Prince Quentyn," he said, "should be greeted cordially, a potential ally with Dornish spears. But we show no dragon until intentions clear." Daenerys nodded. "You will handle it?" "With pleasure." He contemplated the young prince, what stories draped his shoulders. Another fool chasing flame, forged glory. Or perhaps a man burdened with greater weight than even Tyrion carried. Night deepened. The feast mellowed into clusters of conversation under low lamplight. Tyrion excused himself, weaving between guests, head thrumming with strategy, wine, and distant dragon lullaby. He reached a balcony overlooking the dark city. Lanterns dotted streets like constellations fallen to earth. Footsteps behind. He turned to find Varys gliding from shadows, hands folded in voluminous sleeves. "A rare triumph," the spider remarked. "Yunkai trembles, Meereen exalts, and our queen's faith in you swells like a tide." Tyrion rested arms on balustrade. "And yet you sound as if we only displaced one stone on a vast Sivas board." Because we have. Varys gazed over rooftops. Slaver's Bay may bend, but across the narrow sea, Westeros churns. Cersei fortifies King's Landing. The faith militant grow bold. The North rallies behind a boy they call King in the Snow. Chaos blossoms. Meereen. Tyrion felt old weariness rise. A rose garden of madness. And into that garden our queen must step. Varys shifted closer, voice low. You ride her mightiest dragon. Some will hail you savior. Others will whisper puppet master. Beware their tongues. Tyrion snorted. I've survived sharper tongues than these. The sharpest tongue once nearly severed your head, Varys reminded. Do not underestimate a sister's spite. Tyrion's jaw clenched. Cersei lost half the realm with her spite. Soon she may lose the rest. Now, or she may lure dragons into a nest of scorpions. Varys' face remained unreadable. Remember, fear makes clever men cleverer. Tyrion breathed cool night air. Then, we shall be cleverer still. The spider inclined his hairless head. I pray your cleverness endures. The realm will need it. With that, he departed, leaving Tyrion alone with moonlight and silent watchfires glimmering on distant dunes. 2 days later, Rhaegal and Viserion swept low over the bay's glittering blue, flanking Daenerys' flagship, a sleek dromon painted in obsidian lacquer. Tyrion stood on the great pyramid parapet with a spyglass, tracking their progress westward toward where ironborn sails had last been sighted. Behind him, a courtyard bustled with preparations for Prince Quentyn's arrival. Banners embroidered with the red sun-hunt spears of Dorne hung alongside the dragon Triskelion, a visual overture of hospitality. He had drafted a meticulous reception plan. Dornish prince escorted through streets lined with freedmen cheering, culminating in a private audience with the queen. The hand present but Drogon absent, a show of openness tempered by restraint. Missandei approached, as always possessing uncanny intuition of his preoccupations. Her grace sails beyond the horizon. How fares your heart? Beating faster than I'd like, Tyrion admitted. I prefer when dragons remain near. She offered a gentle smile. You could fly after her. He shook his head. Raiding ironborn longships is a want-day errand. If I appear, the ironborn may panic and scuttle vessels. We need prisoners to learn why they came. She folded hands, then breathed. He inhaled, exhaled. The wind tasted of sea salt and spices from market stalls far below. Thank you. A horn blared from the harbor. The Dornish galley, a slender three-masted vessel decorated with carved seahorses, glided into berth under escort of 2 Meereenese patrol boats. Crimson sun sigils fluttered from her yardarms. Showtime, Tyrion muttered. He descended flights of stairs, flanked by Unsullied. The palace's archways filled with music as reed flutes piped a Dornish march. Courtiers lined corridors, some wearing new jewelry fashioned to mimic sunspear motifs. Tyrion glimpsed nervous anticipation. Exotic visitors promised stories, alliances, perhaps glimpses of Westeros to fuel old longings. At the Grand Entry Plaza, Prince Quentyn Martell disembarked. He was taller than Tyrion expected. Sandy brown hair, earnest hazel eyes. Sun-dark skin bore freckles across nose and cheeks, giving him a boyish sincerity. His attire, saffron doublet embroidered with copper thread, breeches of midnight silk, spoke of princely status but not ostentation. He approached Tyrion, bowed deeply. Lord Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion returned a polite nod. Prince Quentyn Martell. Welcome to Meereen. Nidikaratsain. Quentyn straightened. I bring greetings from my father, Prince Doran of Dorne. He produced a scroll, sealed with red wax, delivered to Tyrion's waiting hand. Tyrion signaled an attendant to store it. Her Grace prepares to receive you at midday feast. We arranged chambers in the West Wing. A bath will be drawn. Your hospitality is generous, Quentyn said. If possible, I'd speak with you privately before the audience. Tyrion arched a brow. The young prince's earnest tone hinted urgency. I can spare a walk through the gardens. Fresh air aids conversation. Now, Lewis. They set off along a path lined with flame flowers and date palms. Fountains splashed gently, a serene counterpoint to distant city din. Quentin's gaze lingered on marbled dragons coiled around pillars. "This city is overwhelming," he said softly. "Sandstone and bone, forged into beauty and fear." "Meereen has layers," Tyrion agreed. "Beneath the fear one finds hope, and beneath hope, more bones." Quentin looked down. "Dorne has bones too. My uncle Oberyn's for one. Though he died chasing vengeance," Tyrion said. "May he rest." Quentin exhaled. "I come not for vengeance. I come for promise, one forged long ago between Princess Elia and Prince Rhaegar." He stopped at a terrace, leaning against a marble rail. "My father made a pact with Viserys. A marriage between me and Daenerys. For peace. For dragons restored to Westeros under a southern alliance." Tyrion studied the prince's unguarded face. "Viserys is dead. His promises weigh less than ash. And Daenerys, she is not one to be bartered." "I know." Quentin's voice cracked with honesty. "I come to woo, not claim. I brought 200 lancers sworn to House Martell, and coffers of Old Town silver. But I know coin alone cannot buy a dragon queen's hand." "None," Tyrion sighed. "You must also charm her dragons." Quentin's eyes flicked wide. "The histories speak of Targaryens marrying Dornish queens, of tying blood to fire. I hoped, perhaps." He trailed off. Tyrion's mind returned to Valyrian augurs and Zalmorian. One dragon choosing outside lineage, already unsettled fate. What if a second did? "Hope can be lethal," Tyrion said gently. "Do not let it blind you." He hesitated. "There is more. Dragons are not mere horses to be broken. If they reject you, the cost may be life." Quentin nodded, swallowing. "I accept the risk." Tyrion looked across the gardens where breeze stirred vibrant petals. "Very well. Speak honestly when you meet her. Conceal nothing. She hates half-truths." "I will." Determination stiffened Quentin's posture. "Thank you, Lord Tyrion." He walked on. Tyrion remained by the rail, watching palm fronds sway. He suspected this young Dornish prince possessed courage, perhaps enough to fool dragons into seeing kindred flame. But courage was rarely the missing ingredient. Bloodline, magic, fate, those intangible forces wrote dragon rider lore. Could Dorne's hot sands speak that ancient language? Drogon's hum tugged at his consciousness, cautionary yet curious. Midday's feast assembled smaller than prior celebrations, intimate by comparison, though still resplendent. Quentin took seat, opposite Daenerys. He began with formal greetings, recounted Dorne's suffering under the Lannisters, praised her liberation of cities. He presented gifts. A carved thornwood box containing sands from the Tower of Joy, a cloak of Dornish red silk embroidered with golden flames, and a small book of Dornish songs translated into Valyrian. Daenerys listened politely, thanked him. When he broached the betrothal pact, she requested details. He produced copies of parchments, Viserys' signature, Doran's seal. "Your brother made many promises," she said, tone even. "He rarely kept them. Should I bind myself to an oath sworn by a dead man?" Quentin drew a breath. "I ask not for binding, your grace. Only consideration. And, perhaps, audition?" "Neri." Murmurs rippled. Tyrion sipped watered wine, eyes flicking to Jorah, whose jaw tightened. Daenerys arched a brow. "Audition? I would attempt to bond with one of your dragons," Quentin said. "Show the gods favor. Prove our bloodlines meant to intertwine." The hall fell silent. Tyrion's pulse quickened, half dread, half intrigue. Daenerys regarded him, violet gaze inscrutable. "You would risk your life to claim a pact not yet accepted?" Quentin inclined head. "What is life if not wagered on a worthy cause?" She smiled faintly. "You speak like a Dornishman." Her eyes shifted to Tyrion. "And what counsel does my hand offer?" Tyrion set cup down. Stood. "Your grace, our dragons choose with instincts older than any monarchy. If Prince Quentin attempts, success may strengthen alliance with Dorne. Failure may cost him dearly, and sow bitterness. Weigh what you gain against what you might lose. Daenerys tapped finger on table. Quentin Martell, do you accept that my dragon's will is absolute? I do, he said, voice steady. She studied him longer, then nodded once. Tomorrow at dawn, we convene in the dragon pit. Drogon will observe. You may approach Rhaegal or Viserion. If either accepts, we speak of marriage. If neither, we consider other alliances. Dar. Quentin bowed deeply. The feast resumed, though conversation floated above underlying tension. Tyrion noticed Jorah brood, Missandei observe. Varys calculate silent probabilities. Night before the trial, Tyrion sat in his chamber writing letters to be dispatched by Raven toward Volantis and White Harbor. Lines of warning about Ironborn and possibility of a Dornish-Targaryen union. Candles burned low when a shadow filled the doorway. Jorah Mormont stepped inside, closing door. Hell die. The night growled. Tyrion set quill down. Possibly. Your hand. Stop this madness. Tyrion leaned back. The Queen decides. But note, forbidding Quentyn may push Dorne to rival claimants. Stannis, Aegon, whoever emerges in Westeros. Better we see his true mettle. Jorah's fists clenched. And if Rhaegal devours him, the Dornish will cry betrayal. Then we craft apology. Send gold, plead accident. Dragons are dragons. Tyrion sighed. Better he risk now than during some battle where his failure costs armies. A muscle jumped in Jorah's cheek. I crossed half the world to keep her safe. Letting children play with fire is not safety. Prince Quentyn is not a child. He is to Drogon. Tyrion stood. We disagree. But understand this, Sir Jorah. You may guard her body. I guard her vision. And that means exploring alliances that bring stability to the realm she seeks to rule. The Northman's shoulders rose, fell. Finally he grunted, I pray you are right. He turned, leaving quietly. Tyrion exhaled. He finished letters, sealed them. Then he donned a cloak and slipped out into corridors dim with night torches, drawn by intangible thread to the terrace where Drogon slumbered. The dragon lifted head as he approached. Tyrion placed a hand on warm ebon scale. Tomorrow another suitor comes courting your kin, he murmured. I know not what you will do, but remember our promise? No innocent flame. Drogon rumbled, exhaling smoke. Tyrion sensed amusement, as if the dragon answered, innocence ends when one seeks mastery over fire. He conceded the point. He sat beside the massive head until starlight faded toward dawn. Morning glowed soft peach when they gathered in the circular dragon pit, carved into the pyramid's base. The arena floor, ringed by stone benches, bore scorch marks from training flights. Rhaegal perched atop a basalt monolith, gold-green scales iridescent. Viserion sunned across from him, pale wings partially unfurled. Drogon watched from an elevated alcove behind Tyrion and Daenerys, forelegs draped lazily, eyes half-lidded, yet alert. Prince Quentyn entered wearing sand-colored leathers and no visible weapons. He bowed before Daenerys. She acknowledged. Tyrion stood slightly behind the queen, arms crossed, forcing breathing slow. Quentyn approached the center, pausing within a chalk circle marking safe distance. He drew a deep breath, then spoke Valyrian words Tyrion recognized as an old greeting formula to dragons. Hearts of fire, hear the blood that courses within me. His accent was earnest, if imperfect. Rhaegal's head tilted. Viserion snorted softly. Slowly, Quentyn unbuttoned his tunic, bearing torso riddled with faint scars, testament to training, not battle. From a satchel, he withdrew a small wooden flute. He raised it to lips, played a melody, plaintive, rising then falling like desert wind over dunes. The arena hushed. Tyrion's stomach tightened. Music echoed, weaving between pillars. Viserion's pupils widened. He cocked head, listening. Rhaegal shifted claws. Drogon's breath rumbled behind them. Quentyn lowered flute, stepped beyond chalk line by 2 paces, pulse visible in throat. I offer song, wind and truth, he said quietly. Rhaegal's nostrils flared, testing sense. Tyrion noticed subtle change. Green Dragon's neck crest lowered, signaling cautious interest. Quentyn knelt. Very slowly he reached into satchel again and drew out a small sphere. Glazed glass within which oily swirls of crimson and gold danced. He rolled it across ground. It wobbled, caught light. Curiosity flickered in Rhaegal's posture. Then, with sinuous grace, he slid off the monolith, landing with a thud that shook dust from rafters. He stalked forward, each step deliberate. Quentyn remained kneeling, eyes lowered but not closed. Rhaegal bent head, sniffed the orb. A thin plume of smoke escaped nostrils. The sphere cracked, releasing a faint hiss and a sudden bloom of aromatic steam, smelling of cinnamon and brimstone. Tyrion's eyes widened. Dragon perfume, rumored concoction used by Valyrian handlers. Clever prince. Rhaegal inhaled again, then exhaled a small fiery breath that consumed remaining vapor in a wink. Quentyn did not flinch. Rhaegal's pupils contracted until thin slits, then widened. He lowered head until his muzzle almost touched Quentyn's chest. Heartbeats passed. Quentyn slowly raised a trembling hand, laid it on scale between Rhaegal's nostrils. A collective inhalation swept the arena. Rhaegal emitted a low thrumming purr. Tyrion's jaw slackened. Daenerys' eyes shimmered with awe and something akin to relief. Quentyn whispered something unheard. Rhaegal's massive eyelids drooped halfway. Then the dragon's head nudged him lightly, urging upward. Shakily, Quentyn rose. Rhaegal dipped shoulder, allowing the Dornish prince to clamber. Clumsily but persistent, until he sat astride, legs trembling against scale. The arena erupted in exclamations. Unsullied shifted spears. Dothraki whooped. Tyrion felt Drogon's interest spike behind him, curiosity tinged with grudging respect. Quentyn held no saddle. He gripped a neck ridge. Rhaegal unfurled wings, testing air. Dust rose in swirling eddies. Daenerys stepped forward, voice ringing. Fly once around the pit. Prove bond. Rhaegal leapt. Wind hammered downward, and in a shower of coarse sand, they lifted. Quentyn clung like a limpet, knuckles white but face exultant. They circled the pit, not too high. A gentle arc, and returned, landing with jolt. Cheers doubled. The prince slid down, legs wobbly, but grin wide. Daenerys' descended steps approached him. Silence reclaimed arena. She extended her hand. Quentyn knelt and pressed lips to her fingers. She said, "Rise, Prince Quentyn, Dragon Rider of Dorne." He stood, blinking tears. Tyrion stepped forward beside them, voice loud enough for gathered audiences. "May this union of fire and sun forge peace across seas vast and small." The crowd roared. But beneath jubilation, Tyrion's mind raced, calculating shifting alliances, imagining Cersei's reaction, Euron Greyjoy's opportunism, the North's suspicion. Dragons multiplied not only power but complexity. Drogon's hum echoed internal turbulence. Partnership may bring deliverance or doom. He stroked the reins coiled at his belt, feeling both weight and lift. The axis of the world had shifted again, and he, Lannister dwarf, rode its turning crest. That night, under a moon fat in ivory, Tyrion found himself once more upon Drogon's terrace. The dragon watched, flickering city lights. Rhaegal roosted on a lower platform, Quentyn nearby speaking softly, perhaps recounting Dornish legends. Viserion nested beyond. Tyrion leaned against Drogon's shoulder. "Well, old friend, the family grows." Drogon snorted, plume of sparks rising. Tyrion sensed amusement, tempered by inevitable hierarchy. "We shall see how long peace lasts," he said. "But for tonight, let us pretend the world still holds room for miracles." He closed his eyes, listening to dragons breathe. A symphony, older than empires. Somewhere inside that sound, he heard his own pulse steady, sensing with primal cadence. Knights, queens, slavers, plots. Let them swirl. For one heartbeat along eternity, a dwarf and 3 dragons shared simple skyborn hush, and the world turned unhurried under stars. Word count, 5,380. Yinya. Tyrion stood on the rain-black parapet bordering the Queen's aviary and watched the sunrise bleed across Slaver's Bay like wine spilled across slate. Damp wind off the Gulf carried a faint trace of brine and ash, mingled with the lower city's familiar odors of goat fat, forge smoke, and rumor. Directly above, Drogon clung to an overhanging buttress, asleep with wings half unfurled. The dragon's breaths pulsed warm against Tyrion's cheeks each time the wind shifted, reminding him that even gods needed rest after reshaping the fates of men. Yet the dwarf's mind, cluttered with ledgers, battle plans, and half-remembered Lannister prayers, scorned the luxury of sleep. New alliances were soft clay at dawn and brittle pottery by dusk. He had witnessed entire kingdoms crack in that time. Across the yard, Rhaegal crouched upon a sun-splashed dais, green gold wings mantled proudly around Prince Quentyn Martell, who stood stroking the dragon's neck with tentative reverence. Quentyn's cheeks still bore faint tracks of soot from yesterday's bond trial, but his hazel eyes glinted with that particular blend of awe and disbelief Tyrion had once seen in Jon Snow's face on the wall, the expression of a man glimpsing mysteries older than language and realizing they now belonged, in part, to him. The young prince murmured something in fractured Valyrian, and bowed so low his forehead brushed scale. Rhaegal answered with a purring rumble that reverberated under Tyrion's soles. Daenerys had risen early as well. She paced the length of the adjoining balcony, raiment of pale linen swaying with each stride, bare feet silent on chipped marble. Her silence was rarely emptiness. More often, it was a crucible forging resolve. Tyrion recognized that hush, for he had seen its steel edge before the sack of Astapor, before the storming of Yunkai, before each decision that left unalterable wrinkles on history's parchment. Today that hush coiled about her like ghost flame. Westeros lay across half a world, yet every messenger, raven, and every whisper, Varys collected spoke of storms there, of Cersei's network of scorpion ballistae, of Euron Greyjoy's restless fleet, of dragons rumored, dreaded, assessed with a mixture of disbelief and terror. Daenerys knew the time to sail was near, but she also knew a throne of swords was easier claimed in daylight than held through the night. Tyrion cleared his throat and crossed to her side. She listened without turning when he recited the morning reports. Yunkai's council in disarray, its new provisional governor offering tribute of 1,000 bushels of grain, 100 ships repaired and relinquished, and a yearly levy of copper coin. She listened still as he detailed Astapor's formal request to garrison 500 unsullied to maintain order. At reasonable cost, the parchment had added, which Tyrion translated aloud as, "Coin we do not currently possess, but hope to borrow from the Queen, whose authority we simultaneously reject." Only when he spoke of Volantis, of the Triarchs demanding Daenerys cease piratic interference with their slaver convoys, did her eyes narrow. "They name me pirate," she murmured, voice low as distant thunder. "Let them taste true piracy yet." Tyrion noted that her fingers rested unconsciously upon the hilts of 2 short daggers braided into her belt. One fitted with Valyrian glass, the other with Dornish copper. "But not yet," she added, almost apologetic. "Their ships are wood. I command fire, yet fire cannot rule alone." "True," he agreed. "Fire alone merely leaves ashes, and ashes make poor small folk and poorer tax rolls." When her gaze slid to him, one arched brow inviting elaboration, he continued. "Yunkai's tribute buys us a season of bread. Astapor's request buys us loyalty we can mold. If we choose stipend over scorched earth, Volantis buys us nothing but delay. Still, every coin minted in the shadow of your dragons sends ripples across the narrow sea. Ripples become tides." "Enni, what of King's Landing?" she asked. "Varys hears much." "Enough to spur caution," Tyrion said, folding arms. "Cersei pays smiths double wages to forge scorpion bolts tipped with wildfire-soaked obsidian. She scarce has gold to pay the city watch but finds fortune enough for every weapon that promises my head on a spike. Euron Greyjoy presses his claim for a royal marriage. The High Septon rouses flocks with talk of abominations and scaled flesh. And, his lips twisted, Lord Mace Tyrell hosts grand tournaments to distract the Reach from famine. Bread and circuses, though the bread is mostly illusions. Daenerys exhaled. Illusions feed no children. Tyrion considered Quentyn gently coaxing Rhaegal's wings to extend beyond half-span. The sight sparked both hope and unease. No, but illusions topple morale. And morale wins wars. She turned to him finally, a faint rueful smile at the corner of her mouth. You speak now like my father's hand. He bowed slightly, a gesture both wry and sincere. I speak like a man who has seen lions devour each other over scraps smaller than this pyramid. Better we temper the realm's fear with glimpses of reason before the entire 7 kingdoms take up scorpions and Septon's chance. Soft footfalls approached from behind, Missandei, holding a folded letter sealed with a pale blue sigil. A kraken entwined with a skull. Tyrion's stomach tightened. Euron Greyjoy's surreal vanity extended even to wax. Missandei inclined her head to the queen and offered the parchment. Daenerys broke the seal, read swiftly, then handed it wordlessly to Tyrion. We, Euron of House Greyjoy, Lord of the Iron Islands and King of the Salt Throne, salute the Dragon Queen and her raven-sired counselor. We propose a parley beyond smoke and sword under the holy teeth of Valyria. Bring winged beasts, bring flame if you must. We bring gifts, maps, silence and secrets dredged from the blackest depths. Meet us at the smoking sea in 22 days, the night of the blood moon. There cast your judgment, alliance or annihilation. Send reply on the backs of storms. No signature beyond a flourish shaped like a kraken swallowing a star. Tyrion's mouth felt full of sand. He invites you where every Valyrian ghost may still whisper curses, amid waters that boil when the moon is hungry. Charming. Daenerys' eyes glittered. Euron wants dragons, and he believes theatrics will lure them. Euron wants more than dragons, Tyrion replied. He wants stories told for 1,000 years. The king who seized fire from the sky and forged kingdoms of reef and ruin. Madness stitched with grandiosity. He is dangerous. Then to run. Daenerys gazed across the yard to where Drogon's shadow sprawled against pale stone. Then we refuse. We answer, Tyrion said after a beat. But not with yourself in peril. Send emissaries, perhaps Quentyn and Rhaegal. A prince newly bonded may enthrall Euron yet keep you safe. And his presence signals Dorne's wait behind your banners. He paused, mindful of the risks. I would accompany, of course. She frowned. Euron's men carve women for sport. A parley, there's a viper's nest. I will not hide behind walls while my men bargain with serpents. Lunbered. Dingo. Not hide, Tyrion countered, but strike with 2 hands. One hand extended to parley, the other clenched in readiness. He tilted his head toward Drogon. Drogon overflies the smoking sea from high cloud. Should treachery stir, he descends. We stage our board before moving queens across it. Daenerys considered, gaze flicking to Quentyn once more. Speak to him. Gauge his readiness. Tyrion nodded. A prince who would mount a dragon 2 days after arrival may mount diplomacy if we fit the harness. He left Daenerys to her thoughts, descending stone steps to the training dais. Quentyn looked up from Rhaegal's shimmering eye. Sweat beaded his brow. Strands of sandy hair clung to his forehead. Your Highness, Tyrion greeted, using formal Dornish address. An opportunity to write your name upon the sea has arrived. Quentyn straightened. I am listening. Tyrion relayed the contents of Euron's letter, watching the prince's expression shift from intrigue to sober comprehension. The queen ponders sending you as envoy. Dragonback. Flanked by her hand. The smoking sea is perilous. Boiling vents, toxic mists, unpredictable currents. Worse, Euron's cunning. Quentyn drew a long breath. If my life can shield the queen without dishonoring Dorne, I accept. Rhaegal will consent, he added with a glance at the dragon, whose crest quivered as though hearing his name. But we must prepare. Rhaegal still tires quickly. Then we strengthen both rider and beast, Tyrion said. We leave in 10 days. At dawn we begin drills. Longer flights, tight banking, controlled flame bursts. He patted the saddle wound tight around Drogon's flank for demonstration. "Your hips will ache, your palms blister. But better bruises now than broken bones above the smoking sea." Quentyn nodded, determination shading his face. "Dorn trains in sun and sand. We endure." "A fine motto," Tyrion replied. "But endure discreetly. Each success breeds jealousy. Some Meereenese nobles already fear Dornish influence at court. A misstep, one accidental charbroiled plaza, and they will demand blood." "Ban." "Understood." They shook hands, Quentyn's grip firm despite tremor of lingering fatigue. Tyrion turned away yet paused. "One more thing. Euron boasts illusions, artifacts, horrors dredged from seafloor. Do not trust any gift he proffers, especially if it glitters." The prince's lips curved wryly. "A Martell's skin is thicker than pearl." "See it stays intact," Tyrion said, and strode toward the tower where scrolls awaited. 10 days passed in a blur of regimen. Tyrion found himself juggling Meereen's bureaucratic rebirth by candlelight and Rhaegal's wind-cutting evolutions at dawn. The dragon's first attempts at steep dives left Quentyn dangling by reins, but leather straps Tyrion had modified from the Khazakar harness held firm, and soon the prince learned the subtle counterbalance of knees and core. Evenings he consumed volumes of Valyrian folklore, seeking myths of smoking seas and spirits chained beneath molten crust. Anything to anticipate dangers of the Doom's shattered heart. Meanwhile, Daenerys dispatched envoys north along the Skahazadhan to broker grain shipments, and south to Lhazar where she promised protection in exchange for volunteer levies. New free companies sworn not for coin but for justice. Grey Worm organized rotating patrols across the bay. Varys' little birds scurried with whispers that the free cities met in clandestine council. Tyrosh and Myr debated pooling fleets to shadow the dragon's eastward flight. Lys offered coin to any sellsword captain. Willings offered coin to any sellsword captain willing to risk molten sailcloth for a chance at dragonhide. Westeros, by comparison, seemed almost quiet, yet the quiet of wolves before pounce. On the 10th sunrise, Meereen stirred to spectacle. 2 dragons towered above the docks. Drogon more shadow than flesh. Basilisk black, Rhaegal a living shard of jungle malachite. Tyrion approached clad in boiled leather, reinforced with steel rings over key joints. Crimson doublet hidden beneath. Quentyn wore similar gear in Martell ochre. The ship selected, a sloop dubbed Maiden's Mercy, sat buoyant between spice ships, stripped of masts, repurposed as floating supply barge. It would accompany the dragons at water level, crewed by a dozen unsullied under Grey Worm's distant command. But Dragon's wings would outpace any vessel long before the smoking sea. Daenerys herself affixed the final buckle along Drogon's saddle. She spoke in private with Tyrion, voice cushioned by the hush of pre-flight chaos. "Trust your instincts," she said. "Euron's tongue drips poison. If he wields sorcery as rumor claims, recall no spell can match Dragonflame when wielded swiftly." Tyrion bowed, unable to restrain a faint grin. "And if words suffice, I promise not to roast him prematurely. Though with Greyjoys, char may be improvement." She brushed dust from his shoulder. "Return to me. Whole." "I order," he quipped, heart twisting. "But Lannisters aim high." He climbed Drogon's neck, feeling each knob of vertebra beneath leather. The saddle straps snugged. Around him, harbor workers scattered like startled gulls. He caught Quentyn's eye as the prince mounted Rhaegal. They shared a nod, brothers of eminence, if not blood. Then Drogon surged skyward. The harbor shrank to a mosaic of amber roofs and turquoise water. Rhaegal followed, wings thrumming resonance across the bay. Below, the Maiden's Mercy unfurled sails to trail foamy weight. They angled west-southwest, sun at their backs. Morning light glimmered across Drogon's scale ridges, casting ripples onto Tyrion's gauntlets. Air thinned, sharpening scents. Salt, ozone, a hint of volcanic sulfur drifting from distant fissures. He felt the dragon's mood, restless with anticipation, like a war horse scenting trumpets. Tyrion leaned forward, murmuring nonsense reassurance. more for himself than for Drogon. Hours passed in measured rhythm. 20 wing beats, glide, adjust pitch against crosswind. 20 more. At first, Tyrion recorded bearings upon a wax tablet strapped to his forearm, but soon cold numbed fingers, and he tucked stylus away. They soared above a pod of whales spouting crystalline plumes. Over a derelict galley stripped by scavengers. Above a flotilla of fishing skiffs, whose crews knelt in fervent prayer when shadows eclipsed decks. By afternoon, the sea changed color, bleaching turquoise to chalky gray. Steam wisps drifted from fissures, and occasional bubbles burst on wave crests with a hiss. They had reached the doom's haunted penumbra. Rhaegal shrilled its sulfuric updraft. Drogon roared in answer. Tyrion tasted copper on his tongue. A subtle warning sign. He signaled Quentyn to don the facecloth soaked in vinegar they had prepared, then pulled his own over nose and mouth. It stank, but filtered some toxic fume. The smoking sea sprawled before them. An archipelago of shattered mountains jutted like dragon teeth from mist. Waters simmered, shifting from slate to oily black. Veins of molten rock pulsed beneath surface like serpent fire. Far north, plumes of ash rose where vents pierced ocean floor. Somewhere in that labyrinth awaited silence, Euron's infamous Leviathan ship, rumored to move with neither oars nor sail, but black sorceries. Wheeling above the broken peaks, Tyrion scanned for signs. Driftwood arranged in symbols, fires upon promontories, signal flags. Greyjoy arrogance, seldom hid for long. Rhaegal barked. Quentyn pointed. On a jagged island shaped like a talon, a massive iron pyre blazed orange. Beside it, a clearing among slagstone hosted a bizarre menagerie. Tents of blood-red silk, axes glinting in skull-adorned racks, cages containing featherless birds that screeched when dragons passed overhead. And anchored in a submerged crescent cove, its hull painted the color of midnight sin, loomed silence. Figurehead carved as a woman without mouth. Arms stretched pleadingly toward the sky. Drogon circled once while Tyrion studied layout. Archers posted behind crenellated parapets. Ballistae rigged at uneven angles. Men scurrying ant-small across deck. No immediate hostility, though weapons of unknown craft glimmered. He signaled descent. Drogon eclipsed the pyre as he landed upon basalt. Heat radiated through soles. The rock still lived, its heart molten. Rhaegal sat down 30 paces distant, wings mantling to maintain balance on uneven ground. Quentyn slid off, shaky but composed. Silence's gangplank dropped with clang. Out strode Euron Greyjoy in raiment that seemed stitched from dusk and sorrow. Black leather char-scored, pauldrons trimmed in jade scales, stolen from some deep-sea leviathan. Patch covering one eye yet dazzling opal, set above brow, as if third eye glimpsed unseen horrors. Tattoos of midnight krakens curled up his throat, disappearing beneath beard braided with gold wire. He halted 10 yards away, grinning with the self-assurance of a condemned man who wagers he can seduce his hangman. Behind him, a retinue of ironborn captains, hefted axes etched in high Valyrian glyphs they almost certainly could not read. "My lords of flame," he called, voice echoing off broken walls. "You honor my invitation." His eye lingered on Tyrion's saddle, then on Quentyn's. 2 riders, and a queen absent. Dare I hope she meant this parley as courting game? Tyrion guided Drogon forward 1 step. Shwai. Steam hissed. The Greyjoy captains flinched. Euron did not. "Her Grace remains in Meereen," Tyrion said, projecting calm though his lungs ached with volcanic sting. "She sends counsel, and might." He patted Drogon's neck. Euron spread arms. "And I offer gifts fit for dragon lords. Secrets drowned when the doom fell. Salvage plucked from abysses where even krakens fear." He gestured. Crewmen rolled forward a large cage draped in salt-stiff canvas. Another sailor bore a velvet pillow supporting a dull black horn, banded with Valyrian glyphs. Tyrion's gut twisted. He recognized it from rumors, dragonbinder, if true. Supposed to bind dragons to the will of whoever sacrificed lungs to its hellish note. Euron stroked the horn. "Shall we converse?" Tyrion swung down, feet landing with jarring vibration against brittle crust. He kept one hand upon Drogon's foreleg. "We converse, but gifts remain sealed until we agree terms. Dragonfire can test authenticity later." Euron's grin widened. "Lannister caution has daddy's smell." His gaze flicked to Quentyn. "And what of Dorne's seed? Will you squander royal lives on smoking rocks?" Quentyn stepped forward. "Dorne chooses its battles and prizes," his voice steadier than stone. Euron's laugh cracked the air. "Ah, noble hearts. Very well." He motioned to a cluster of obsidian stools arranged around a blackened altar. "Let us sit and craft nightmares." They sat. Tyrion perched upon Drogon's foot as though custom thrown. Quentyn remained standing, hands folded. Euron sprawled, petting the dragon horn like a devoted lover. Negotiation unspooled. Euron proposed marriage to Daenerys, offering the Iron Fleet's 1,000 ships to ferry her armies across, plus a small favor, naming him king of Westeros' western shores after conquest. Tyrion parried with counter. Ironborn granted lordship of the Iron Islands, nothing more, in exchange for naval support and cessation of reaving. Euron scoffed, extolling reaving as his people's holy blood sport. He touted alliances with sell-sails from Korth, mages of shadow, drowned priests who spoke to leviathans. At intervals he made theatrical displays, producing maps showing secret currents circumventing Lannisport's booms. Unfurling parchments scribed with incantations he claimed could shatter scorpion bolts mid-air, describing a plan to kidnap Cersei's youngest son and trade him for Dragonstone. Each offering glimmered like poison gems. Tyrion listened, weighing lies against possible kernels of truth. Hours later, the sun sank blood red. Rhaegal dozed, Drogon's nostrils smoked. Negotiations stalled. Euron rose, eye blazing. "Enough barter. The world trembles. Choose alliance, or meet me as foe when I sail upon black squalls bearing fire made flesh." He lifted Dragonbinder. "Do you know its song? The first breath flays lungs, the second steals soul. But hearts of iron do not break." He caressed Horn's runes. "I shall tame dragons, or burn within their bellies, laughing." Tyrion's skin crawled. He knew madness in talk. He had lived amid Joffrey's sadism and Cersei's paranoia. Euron's madness resembled cosmic hunger, devouring chaos. Tyrion pictured the horn's blast echoing across fleets, dragons writhing in agony. He glanced at Drogon. The beast's pupils narrowed, hackles lifting. Quentyn spoke quietly. "Blow it now then. Test your heart of iron before my eyes." Silence fell heavy. A muscle jumped in Euron's cheek. Rage or amusement, impossible to tell. He lowered the horn. "Perhaps I save its note for the Red Keep." Tyrion stood. "We shall relay your terms to the Queen. She will answer in due course." Euron inclined head. "Mock bo dadial. Pray her answer quick." Storms gather faster than ravens. Negotiation concluded. Tyrion mounted Drogon. Rhaegal roused. Quentyn climbed aboard. They leapt, leaving Pyre's light dwindling beneath wingbeats. At safe altitude, they banked east into dusk's purple gloom. Tyrion's pulse pounded. Lava glow shone through fissures below like embers in titanic forge. He replayed every word, every twitch of Euron's eye, searching for motive threads. Dragonbinder haunted him. Did the horn truly command dragons? Or did it command fools to their doom? Either outcome demanded vigilance. Midnight draped them when they sighted Maiden's Mercy. A lantern signal blinked thrice, verifying crew safe. Without pause, dragons angled higher into stars, racing the wind back to Meereen. They arrived exhausted at dawn, red-eyed commanders astride soot-flecked giants. Tyrion's muscles screamed, but he hobbled directly to council chambers. Daenerys listened as he detailed parley, horn, threats, maps. When he finished, she paced before tall windows overlooking sunlit harbor. "Euron seeks to leash dragons," she murmured, voice wound tight. "No man will own my children." "Nor can they," Tyrion assured, though inside he was less certain. "But we must test that horn before he does. Acquire it. Then, Almond?" Grey Worm proposed covert strike team. Varys suggested bribing disaffected Ironborn. Jorah offered to sail at once, cut Euron's throat in his sleep. Debate raged until Daenerys raised a hand. "We choose subtlety," she said. Varys, find fissures in his command. Tyrion, craft plan to intercept Horn mid-transit. Quentyn, drill Regal for battle. Drogon and I will prepare. When Euron sails east to present his answer, we greet him sooner, with skyfire and treachery of our own. Meeting adjourned, Tyrion trudged to his chamber. But Quentyn intercepted him, face ashen. "There is something," the prince said. "When Euron's men readied the cage, I glimpsed inside, eyes, Tyrion. A creature like a sea worm, pale as moonbone, shackled in iron brine, alive. Euron means to unleash horrors." Tyrion closed his eyes briefly. Valyrian legends told of krakens with breath of frost flame. He collects monsters. Quentyn grasped Tyrion's arm. "We must burn that ship." "We will." Tyrion squeezed his shoulder. "But precision, not rage. Dragons may win wars. Strategy keeps them from becoming the very doom we fight." The prince nodded, tension easing. Days blurred into urgent preparation. Varys' webs reached Ironborn deckhands. One promised to sabotage Silence's rudder for a bag of rubies and safe passage for his lover. Grey Worm drilled infiltration cadres in night landings. Tyrion consulted pyromancers once enslaved in Astapor, designing flammable tar bombs ignitable even on water. Daenerys spent twilight hours riding Drogon along the bay's perimeter, scorching practice targets shaped like warships. News from Westeros arrived in shards. Stannis sacked Deepwood Motte. Cersei executed a dozen alchemists after wildfire cache explosion. Rumors of a Targaryen claimant named Aegon gathering Golden Company in Stormlands. Each tidbit further complicated strategic tapestry. One evening, as Crimson Sun crashed beneath horizon, Tyrion joined Daenerys on the pyramid's pinnacle. The queen stood silhouetted against lavender sky, hair streaming. Drogon lay coiled nearby, tail twitching in dream. "Do you fear what's coming?" she asked without preamble. He joined her, leaning against stone. "Every waking moment. Fear keeps me clever." She smiled faintly. "And clever keeps us alive. Most days." He studied her profile. Strength and vulnerability etched in equal measure. "You carry more than fear. You carry promise. The realm has forgotten promise." Her eyes glimmered. "What if we fail them?" "We fail only if we become what we fight." He offered a half shrug. "Still, people will call us tyrants, saviors, demons, depending on which banners burn. Our duty is not to their stories, but to lives between the lines." Soft breeze rustled her linen. "Hold me to that, Tyrion Lannister. I shall tattoo it on my heart." She laughed quietly. In that sound, he heard the chords of the world not yet broken. A fortnight later, Silence left the smoking sea, heading north to Reeve Lannisport before crossing to Slaver's Bay, if spies proved true. Varys' sabotage would strike halfway across Summersea, rudder jammed, tar bombs planted. Dragons would finish the rest. Tyrion oversaw final coordination. Unsullied flotilla positioned along likely route, Dothraki outriders stationed at Meereen's coastal cliffs for visual signals. Night before sortie, Tyrion found Quentyn rehearsing saddle dismounts by torchlight. Sweat streaked his arms, blisters split along palms. Tyrion approached with wineskin offered. Quentyn drank deep, wiped mouth. "Tomorrow," the prince said, "we end a nightmare or awaken worse." Tyrion considered the dark, where stars blinked indifferent. "We end a single thread. The tapestry endures, but dragons weave now." Quentyn slung wineskin back, expression fierce. "For Dorne, for Elia, for all those murdered by cruelty," Tyrion agreed, thinking of Shay, of Tasha, of children burned in wildfire. Dawn launched the assault. Drogon and Rhaegal soared above low fog. Silhouettes etched crimson by rising sun. Unsullied Dromons trailed far behind. Sails furled to mask silhouettes. Sea stretched empty until midday, when Silence emerged from haze. A black arrow cutting water, sails reefed to repair sabotage, progress sluggish. Upon deck, Euron raged, gesturing at crew scrambling to free jammed rudder chain. Smoke from tar bomb leak darkened the windward side. Tyrion signaled Quentyn. Dragons split. Rhaegal diving starboard, Drogon port T. At 200 yards, Euron's archers loosed a volley. Bolts ricocheted off scale like straw darts. Tyrion's heart hammered. He timed the approach. Drogon exhaled a narrow tongue of flame along waterline where tar seeped. Fire leapt, licking hull like hungry cat. Rhaegal answered, torching upper rigging. Sails ignited. Rigging cables screamed as tension burned. Silence shuddered, but not enough. Ironborn doused flames with seawater pumped by chain buckets. Tyrion cursed. Tar insufficient. He guided Drogon for second pass, this time aiming at catapults. A scorpion bolt whistled past his ear, grazing Drogon's left wing membrane. The dragon roared, banking hard. Tyrion's stomach lurched. On deck, Euron raised dragonbinder to lips. Crew plugged ears. Tyrion's world narrowed to black horns, jagged maw dotched. He screamed to Quentyn, inaudible, and spurred Drogon into steep dive. But Euron blew before Tyrion closed. Sound erupted. Or something beyond sound, a wave of pressure that rattled bones and set teeth on edge. Drogon convulsed mid-air. Tyrion felt the dragon's agony like molten nails hammered into skull. Rhaegal shrieked, faltering. Tyrion fought to stay conscious as saddle jerked. Then he felt Drogon's will surge. A tidal refusal. The dragon shook head violently, spine swinging so wide Tyrion almost lost seat. A second blast from horn. Blood spurted from Euron's nose and ears. Sailors collapsed. But Drogon's roar overpowered, infrasonic bellow that shattered the vessel's aft deck. Rhaegal regained altitude, though blood seeped from waxy skin near ears. Euron lowered horn, coughing clots, yet Slasher grin clung. "Hear me, beasts," he screeched, voice ragged. Tyrion knew one solution: remove horn or blower. He steered Drogon straight at Silence's forecastle. Dragon feathers of flame flared. Deck boards exploded. Drogon landed amid ruin, claws shearing planks. Tyrion vaulted off, drawing dirk, though legs wobbled. Smoke burned eyes, screams whirled. Euron, staggering, drew an obsidian rim axe. "Come, imp," he rasped. "Let us make myth." Tyrion's dirk looked pathetic against axe, but he snarled nonetheless. Before steel met, Quentyn swooped low. Rhaegal's tail smashed mast remains, flinging Euron sideways. Sailors scattered as Green Dragon coiled around midships. Tyrion scrambled up fallen spar just as Drogon loosed point-blank inferno into cargo hold where Tarbomb Cache sat. Ship belched fireball skyward. Shockwave hurled men into sea. Tyrion ducked behind collapsed bulwark. Heat seared hair. Euron stood amid maelstrom, cape aflame, laughter choking through blood. Quentyn atop Rhaegal inhaled deep, then exhaled emerald fire that consumed horn, deck, Kraken King in vortex of screaming emerald. When flames cleared, only slagged iron and charred silhouette remained. With Silence mortally wounded, dragons lifted. Tyrion clung to Drogon's neck as vessel's corpse cracked, sinking stern first. Ocean hissed. Swallowed wreck. Unsullied ships closed to rescue survivors. Those refusing were left to drown. Quentyn circled, eyes wild yet focused. Tyrion signaled all clear. They banked east toward Meereen again, hearts pounding, horn destroyed, threat ended. Homecoming was thunderous. Bells rang, freedmen thronged docks, chanting Martell and Targaryen names interwoven. Daenerys met them at pyramid stairs flanked by gray cloaks of Dothraki Queensguard. Dothraki Queensguard. She rushed to Drogon, checking membranal tear, then turned to Tyrion, hands cupping his soot-smeared face. Her relief blazed. "Euron?" she asked. "Was never a good swimmer." She embraced him briefly. He inhaled the scent of sea salt and ash in her hair, then stepped aside for Quentyn's reception. The prince dismounted, kneeling. Daenerys raised him, pressed kiss to his brow. "You have done more today than many kings," she said, voice tremoring with emotion and exhaustion. Feasting followed, of course. More gold poured into roast boar and spiced wine. But Tyrion sipped little, mind ticking ahead, Cersei scorpions. The other Aegon, Tyrell machinations, plague rumors from Old Town, ice creeping from north. Dragons had slain a kraken, but the world bristled with hydra heads. Varys joined him at balcony edge. "Well played," the spider whispered. "Yet whispers speak of septons declaring dragons proof of apocalypse. Faith militant gather dragonglass arrows. Spark meets oil." Tyrion sighed. "When has man not twisted miracle into fear?" "When the miracle feeds them," Varys said. "Westeros is hungry." Tyrion gazed across harbor, where dragons roosted like living pyres, warm against night chill. "Then we bring bread with fire." He straightened. "Euron's ship's now ours. We sail soon." Varys' eyes gleamed, reflecting torchlight. "May the Seven save us all." Later still, Tyrion retreated to quiet library, quill scratching parchment. He drafted proclamation of alliance with Dorne. Decree forbidding further slave raids under death of Dragon's flame. Charter granting Astapor representation in a freed cities council. Supply orders, war ledger. Words felt inadequate to the symphony of future risk, but paper anchored chaos momentarily. Footsteps. Quentyn entered, hair damp, tunic replaced. He held a small tin flask. "Orange blossom liqueur," he offered. "Dornish custom after victory." Tyrion accepted a nip, savoring floral warmth. They toasted silently. The prince's eyes clouded. "I burned men today." "So did I," Tyrion said gently. "Does it ever stop haunting?" "No." Tyrion paused. "But we weigh specters against those we save. Balance seldom equates." Quentyn nodded, gaze distant. "Dorne's sun burns fierce. Yet dragonfire," he shuddered. "I fear it too." "Good," Tyrion replied. "Fear is bridle to power." He watched the prince leave, shoulders burdened. Tyrion turned to window. Above, Drogon soared against moon, performing slow spirals, perhaps ensuring city slept safe. Rhaegal shadowed him, smaller but resolute. Two dragons, two riders. The world's axis had shifted again, and Tyrion sensed deeper tilts ahead. Shadows of other winter creeping, whispers of wildfire vaults beneath King's Landing, and prophecies carved upon obsidian candles yet to ignite. "Why do you I?" He closed eyes, inhaled parchment dust, and sea breeze blending like past and future entwined. A dwarf of Casterly rock, now shepherding dragons and princes, queens and nightmares. He wondered what Tywin would say. Likely nothing. Tywin's silence was indictment enough. Tyrion chuckled under breath. He dipped quill, began fresh letter. This to Jon Snow or Aegon if rumors true, offering parley when Queen's fleet reached Westeros. Words were seeds. Some would root, others wither. He would scatter many. And when fleets unfurled, perhaps Westeros might glimpse not just queens of conquest, but lanterns guiding through night. Above, dragons roared, deep, resonant, prophetic. Their voices carried across Slaver's Bay, across deserts, across seas silvered by moon. Maybe the chorus reached even Winterfell's frozen ramparts. Maybe it shook the Red Keep stones. Tyrion kept writing, each sentence a rung on ladder rising toward dawn, and outside, beneath the grand tapestry of stars, the future beat its wings. Word count: 5,270. Tuah, Ka. The hush before departure clung to Meereen like gauze over a healing wound, thin enough that sounds of restlessness bled through in every quarter-hour trumpet call, every squeal of axles bearing crates of salt fish, every chant of bricklayers sealing the last cracks in the breaches. Dragons had left 2 years earlier. Tyrion Lannister strode along a colonnade halfway up the Great Pyramid, hands clasped behind his back, assessing the milling caravans in the plaza below. Everywhere he looked, banners snapped. The three-headed black dragon of Targaryen, the red sun and spear of Martell, the lion shield insignia of the new city cohort raised by Meereen's freed artisans. Even the shipwrights of Astapor had fashioned an ensign, turquoise waves encircling a broken chain, which fluttered defiantly atop a half-finished galley christened Unfettered. Beyond that crowd, Two dragons dozed in mirrored arcs of obsidian scale and green-gold shimmer where the morning sun spilled over the harbor. Drogon sprawled upon the great quay, tail draped into sea foam. Rhaegal perched on a limestone plinth, crouched like an emerald gargoyle between cranes loaded with grain. Both beasts basked in warmth as dockworkers ducked under the threat of taloned toes and bat-wing shade, moving cargo quickly lest a misplaced barrel invite draconic curiosity. Further seaward, the third dragon, Tyrion, glided over the bay in lazy loops, his pale wings flecking water with gold. No rider mounted him yet. Dothraki whispers predicted a new bond would emerge before winter. A Kalaka, born beneath Bleeding Star, or a bastard of Valyrian descent lost among the free companies. Tyrion harbored hopes that no overeager fool would test fate until Westeros steadied beneath its new horizon. 3 dragons already felt perilous to history. 4 riders might fracture it. As he watched, Daenerys Targaryen descended the marble ramp within the pyramid's shadow. Flanked by Grey Worm and Missandei, the queen wore riding leathers bleached white and trimmed with strips of indigo leather sewn in flame motifs, but at her back fluttered a cloak of black and scarlet silk so light it seemed fashioned of smoke. She set her pace deliberately slow. Every freedman on the plaza soon recognized the cadence and hushed, kneeling into an undulating tide of bent heads. Only the dragons were unmoved. Drogon's ear spines twitched, but his eyes remained half-lidded. Tyrion felt the hush thrum through his sternum. When silence had coalesced into something nearly physical, Daenerys spoke, not loud, but clear. "This city was once chained," she began, words unadorned. "Chained by masters, by fear, by the memory of conquest. We break those chains together. Now we sail not to conquer more slaves, but to free another people. The people of Westeros who starve beneath gold crowns and rusted oaths." A murmur rose. Tyrion's eye caught flickers of conflicting emotion. Awe in the countenance of former pit fighters. Anxiety in Meereen's merchants, remembering war's chaos. Rapture in the children who had only ever known dragons as guardian. She lifted a hand, and all fell quiet again. "I leave ships enough to hold this harbor and soldiers enough to defend your freedom. A council elected by every man and woman will sit upon the green seats of Astapor, Yunkai, and Meereen to judge disputes and trade equally with all. If you keep faith with each other, the world will keep faith with each other. The world will keep faith with you." Her gaze swept them. "My hand, Tyrion Lannister, commands those we sail with. Prince Quentyn Martell commands Rhaegal. Grey Worm commands the unsullied who remain. Together you stand free." She let the words hang. Then she turned without fanfare toward Drogon. The ocean of bowed heads lifted in reverent waves, voices mingling into a ragged cheer chasing after her footfalls. Tyrion lingered a beat longer, noting pockets of tension. Merchants conferring in hushed circles, Giscari nobles weighing calculus of loyalty, priests of the Red Temple clanging bells in exuberant approval. All expected something new. None quite foresaw shape of its jaws. He made his way down descending marble stairs that smelled of sun-warmed salt and jasmine oil. Halfway through the court arch he met Quentyn, boots muddy from dawn drills, cheeks still flushed crimson where wind had slapped him during Rhaegal's morning flight. "How many crates for Rhaegal's meat?" Tyrion asked. 7 today, Quentyn replied, voice carrying notes of consternation. He burned 2 rather than eat. Over-roasted. Temperament, Tyrion muttered. Better the meat than the quartermasters. They matched stride while Grey Worm issued last-minute orders, posting squadrons at intersections leading to the docks and along the walls. Tyrion noticed Quentyn, studying his dragon harness buckles again. Ever since the smoking sea, the prince inspected his tack twice hourly, as if the miracle of survival depended on constant reaffirmation. "You'll break the leather with worry," Tyrion chided gently. "I fear to break my neck if I do not," Quentyn answered. Humor, but edged. Rhaegal grows stronger. Yesterday, he climbed an updraft higher than Drogon dared. Dyson. Dragons measure risk differently, Tyrion said. Drogon carries memories of spears and slaver chains. Rhaegal carries new wind. True enough. Tyrion had noticed the green dragon practicing corkscrew dives over the bay whenever gulls flocked, teasing them before pulling aloft with giddy croons. The childlike exuberance alarmed the harbor watch, but delighted the freed folks' children, who kept count of feathers scorched mid-air. Quentin exhaled. I keep thinking, if we return to Sunspear with 2 dragons, the Martell banner will never droop again. Assuming Sunspear still stands, Tyrion said wryly. Rumor says ironborn longships rove past Arbor, and what Aegon and his Golden Company mean for Storm's End remains uncertain. We will face them. Determination sharpened Quentin's voice, but uncertainty haunted the edges. I wonder what my father will make of my new companion. Tyrion pictured serene Doran Martell, cloaked in shawl and secrets, gouty fingers steepled as he listened to news of dragons landing upon his pearl-white terraces. Hal mixed caution with delight, and planned for every contingency, including the one where you do not return. Quentin nodded, accepting truth with soldier's grimness. They parted when Tyrion reached his Spartan office just inside the pyramid's gatehouse. Scrolls were stacked like siege towers, manifests of catapults shipped from Quarth, rosters of Dothraki Khalazars volunteering to ride across Crownlands, treaties drafted between Daenerys Council and newly liberated masters, who now styled themselves freeholders. Varys stood by the slit window, slender silhouette backlit by gold, reading a coded raven note. Without turning, he said, Oldtown's high towers convene the conclave tomorrow. Word of dragons preceded you. Some archmaesters speak of white ravens for winter. Let them, Tyrion replied, rummaging for his traveling inks. Winter may freeze our enemies' resolve, or freeze our supply lines, Varys countered gently. The faith preaches that the Dragon Queen's coming heralds second doom. Men will lash to any symbol that promises hearthfire in bitter cold. Tyrion uncorked inkwell, dipped quill. All the more reason we carry grain, and messages of bread as loud as flame. Speaking of, has Tycho Nestoris answered our letter? Varys turned, producing a parchment sealed with a golden key. Arrived by Myrish runner an hour past. He handed it over. Tyrion broke it open while Varys tidied scrolls. Lean, exacting Valyrian script spelled out. The Iron Bank acknowledges Queen Daenerys' pledge to honor arrears of the late King Robert and Queen Cersei, contingent upon proof of her ceded rule. A representative will meet your fleet at Pentos to negotiate credit. Safe voyage. Beneath, Tycho's small seal. Better than an outright refusal, Tyrion muttered. At least Pentos sits along our path. It also sits under Illyrio Mopatis' corpulent thumb, Varys said, lips twisting. He once backed visories. He now whispers of Aegon taken under his protection. No. The boy with the Golden Company. Tyrion set parchment aside. Will speak sweetly to Illyrio, then pay Tycho in promises, and hope no storms splinter us before Blackwater Bay. Footsteps echoed. Missandei entered carrying a ledger thicker than a Dornish torso. The slate of freed engineers who elected to accompany the march, she said, setting it down. 53 in total. Blacksmiths, masons, 2 pyromancers, and a master aqueduct smith from Volantis. Excellent, Tyrion said. Riverside cities will need bridges after Cersei collapses them. Missandei smiled faintly. Ships sail with tide at second bell. The Queen asks that you be on deck of Balerion by then. I wouldn't miss my own departure, Tyrion said, though a voice inside whispered, Departure is simple, return is myth. He sealed a final message for Davos Seaworth, somewhere rumored to advise Stannis, and handed it to Varys' courier. Then he buckled the worn lion-headed dagger to his belt, slung a satchel of ledgers across torso, and headed for the docks. D. Balerion, largest of the refurbished slave galleys, glimmered with fresh pitch and black lacquer, her hull reinforced with ironwood ribs from Summer Island. At her prow, a new figurehead jutted, a stylized dragon in flight, mouth open in warning. Tyrion boarded via gangplank, overshadowed by Drogon's wing-cast gloom. The dragon perched atop the mast's crosstree like a monstrous figurehead of his own, observing with unblinking red eyes while sailors, freedmen volunteers for the most part, worked lines. Captain Solmio of Lys greeted Tyrion with a curt bow. "Wind favors us from south-southwest. Should hold steady until we round Basilisk Point." "Now, let's outrun rumor then," Tyrion replied, clasping the man's wrist. Across the harbor, Quentyn guided Rhaegal aloft. Wingspa and outracing late-morning gulls. Smaller skiffs ferried last barrels of fresh water, salted goat, and pickled lemon rind, Daenerys' favorite. She stepped aboard Balerion moments before cast-off, presents sending crews scurrying like startled crabs seeking vantage to kneel. She acknowledged each with nod or brief word. Then she joined Tyrion at the railing as sailors loosed moorings. When the massive winch creaked and oars dipped, Meereen's harbor began to recede. People packed terraces and rooftops. Children tossed petals of blue and red blossoms. Musicians beat drums that stuttered across water like heartbeats. Tyrion felt a lump rise unbidden. He had never felt such collective farewell, not at Casterly Rock, not at King's Landing, not at any place where gold towered above humanity. It humbled him. Daenerys watched too, silent until the final horn blast echoed off the city's pyramids. "I wonder if I shall see it again," she said softly. "You will," Tyrion assured. "Queens do not abandon kingdoms, even adopted ones." She smiled, thin but appreciative. "Queens sometimes die before return." "I've died once already," Tyrion quipped. "Found it disagreeable. I forbid it." A laugh escaped her, quiet though real. Then, as if a mental gear shifted, she drew shoulders straighter and assumed the posture of command. He recognized the transformation each time they confronted crisis, the mortal woman sliding aside to reveal the living banner. Hours slipped by. The fleet, 30 warships, 60 supply cogs, a dozen swift Dromons, spread across the Gulf, triangular sails catching steady breeze. Drogon shadowed the flagship's mast. Rhaegal scouted ahead. Viserion traveled between formations, ensuring stragglers kept pace. Tyrion spent afternoon cross-referencing manifests, yet his gaze drifted often to the horizon where hazy lines separated azure sea from paler sky. On that line perched Westeros, roiling with gates yet unopened, scorpions yet launched, secrets still rust-laden. If the world possessed gods, they perched likewise, debating wagers over this exodus. At dusk, Varys joined him after first supper. Sweet wine and goat cheese had been laid out in council cabin. Both men took moderate portions. "I have a whisper from inside King's Landing," Varys said, sliding coated scrap across table. Qyburn experiments with wildfire warheads on scorpion bolts, detonations triggered by impact or timed fuse. His ravens call them sun spears. Tyrion grimaced. Imagine Cersei's glee. A flaming spear of wildfire guided by steel. Arc of descent less predictable, but terror seldom requires accuracy. Varys noted. "We'll need alternative assault." Tyrion tapped parchment. "Storm King's Landing from Riverside at night perhaps, or incite slave uprising inside city walls and open gates. You know captivity," Varys said. "Matter of fact, not unkind." "Too well," Tyrion replied. "And I know half the city would welcome chaos if it promised bread." "Then bread we shall carry." Varys lifted his cup. "To unlikely bakers." They drank. That night, Tyrion retired to small cabin beneath Dragon Roost. Sleep eluded him. He paced narrow planks, listening to wind moan through rigging, to distant roar when Drogon dreamt. At some point he drifted into restless half-slumber and dreamed of green flames erupting from spires, of bells ringing as dragons screamed overhead, of his father's voice saying, "Find my shade and wear it." He woke sweating, dawn's gray light flickering through porthole. They had passed Skagos Spur in the night and now skirted Jade Gates, waters infamous for pirates and storms. Tyrion dressed quickly, climbed to deck. Waves were low rollers today, ripple white, unthreatening. Rhaegal soared far ahead with Quentyn. Drogon perched starboard rail, tail hanging idly, occasionally smacking water into plumes. Conversation with the Queen and Council consumed a day. Tycho's envoy meeting at Pentos, division of forces, unsullied, and Dothraki to land in Dorne for muster. Dragons to accompany. Portion of fleet to sail on to Dragonstone, securing staging ground. Jorah argued for direct strike on King's Landing. Tyrion countered with diplomatic overture to the north. Daenerys deferred decision until Pentos. We weigh storm against snow when both lie under same sun. By third evening, they sighted Manteri's black cliffs rising under thunderheads. Lightning flickered behind peaks, silhouetting ruins where Valyrian gargoyles wept molten nests centuries gone. A squall forced fleet to anchor in lee of Basalt Island, a place known to charts as Widow's Kiss. Rain lashed, wind howled, dragons huddled behind cliffs, wings mantled against salt spray. During storm, Tyrion found himself summoned to midship's hold where Daenerys inspected crates of forged chains and iron collars sliced open. The queen touched a broken collar, expression inscrutable. I asked they all be melted into nails and tools, she murmured. Why did these remain? Part of demonstration, Tyrion said. When Westerosi lords witness smashed collars beneath council tables, memories sharpen. She closed fist around cold iron. Symbols matter, yes, but keep none aboard children's quarters. He nodded. I shall see them stowed. Lightning illuminated her face. Half determination, half weariness. Sometimes, she said, I feel each piece of iron still clings to a ghost. Then we use ghosts as lanterns, he answered softly. Storm abated by dawn. They sailed with repaired canvas, clearing treacherous reefs by midday. By end of week, Pentos' honey-hued villas blossomed along coastline, like clusters of pale grapes. Tyrion spied Illyrio Mopatis's manors, gleaming domes ringed by orchard walls. Ravens from Illyrio greeted them even before anchor, invitations to banquet, promises of silks, letters praising our shared dream of restoration. Tyrion recalled the Magister's cunning and prepared mental armor. The queen disembarked for parley at Illyria's summer palace. Tyrion, Quentyn, Varys, Jorah, and a phalanx of Unsullied accompanied. Drogon circled overhead, uneasy amid unfamiliar scents. Perfumed corridors, roast peafowl on platters, choruses of Pentoshi courtesans singing ballads of Florian and Jonquil. Illyrio greeted Daenerys with theatrical flourish, robes of purple brocade dragging across marble. He bowed low, belly grazing floor, then peddled gifts, rubies, Valyrian daggers, scrolls listing houses already swayed to her cause. In the great dining hall, Tycho Nestoris awaited, slim man in austere black, ringlets of iron bank keys glinting at his breast. Negotiations commenced over spiced apricot wine. Tyrion laid out ledger of potential revenue, taxes from crownlands once freed, tariffs on Dornish wine imported to North, restoration of Lannister mines under crown oversight. Tycho listened with expressionless grace. When Daenerys pledged interest rates equal to Cersei's but actual gold by next harvest, Tycho inclined head and unrolled preliminary loan charter. Later, Tyrion slipped into Illyrio's library, drawn by dusty scent of vellum. He found old maps, one showing roots of Blackfire rebellions. Illyrio entered, bearing candied almonds. Curious, he said. How history circles back. More curious, Tyrion replied. How the past sometimes arrives in flesh, believing itself future. This rumored Aegon, for instance. Illyrio adopted innocently, wide eyes. Rumor indeed. A boy saved from murder, raised to restore broken line. Poetry, no? Poetry seldom consults genealogists, Tyrion said. If he is truly Rhaegar's son, he must still contend with dragons. And if he is not, I hope for his sake the truth dies silent. Illyrio smiled cryptically. One loses nothing placing extra pieces upon Sevastboard. Except perhaps fingers if a dragon mistakes them for candles, Tyrion answered. They parted with politeness of duelists, aware swords hovered out of sight. That night, Varys visited Tyrion's cabin. Moonlight spilled in stripes across planks. Illyrio's servants whisper Aegon landed near Storm's end last moon. Golden Company holds Rain House and has eyes on marches. He marches under banner of Black Dragon with red flames. Blackfire inverted. Tyrion poured wine. An upstart or blood heir. He complicates everything. The realm may rally behind a boy rather than queen they fear. We must measure hearts of lords, Varys said. If fear of dragons outweighs hate of Cersei, our path remains. But if a rightful male heir offers comfort, then we introduce them to comfort of bread again, Tyrion concluded. And let dragons remind who bakes oven. Plans adjusted accordingly. Dornish alliance essential. Stormlands must yield quickly. King's Landing not assaulted until Lord see Daenerys as last wall against winter. Within 3 days, fleet sailed again, leaving Pentos with iron bank letters of credit and Illyria's promises. Tyrion sensed double edges in those promises, but coin-minted loyalties even when tongues lied. Around Nisei, they crossed stepstones under cloak of heavy fog. Dragonfire served as lighthouse for trailing ships, a red glow drifting through tidal mists. Rumors of Triarch privateers, prowling passages, proved toothless. Perhaps the sight of winged silhouettes deterred boldness. Morning on 10th day, they sighted Dorne's coast, pale dunes giving way to crenellated walls of sunspear, sun-baked tan and ochre, banners crimson out. Rhaegal roared, sensing homeland of his rider. Quentyn guided him in wide arc above Broken Arm, scattering gulls across turquoise shallows. People crowded seawalls and palace terraces. Dornish spearmen in copper scale stood rigid, yet eyes widened as dragons dipped low. Tyrion recognized warm scents of citrus groves, the smell of desert wind carrying notes of pepper and seaweed, a fragrance from stories he once read in Master Mallion's travelogue, but never believed would inhale himself. The fleet anchored in the natural harbor south of the Shadow City. Longboats ferried unsullied detachments to secure docks. Dornish guards, lotus crests gleaming, escorted the Queen's party through winding alleys into walled gardens of the old Water Gardens Palace, where Prince Doran waited on a wheeled chair, half covered in embroidered blanket of gold thread. The meeting brimmed with layered emotions, Doran's eyes filling as Quentyn knelt before him. Daenerys greeting the prince with formal Valyrian courtesy, soft gasp of sand, snakes lining columns. Obara's hand flexing spear haft, Tyaina's smile, venom sweet, Nymearia's keen gaze measuring every movement. Beyond the dais, Dornish highborn and small folk alike crowded archways, craning for glimpses. Doran spoke slow but firm. Dorne remembers Elia. Dorne remembers Viserys' promise. Dragons come to vindicate that memory. He gestured to Quentyn. My son returns not alone. He brings freedom's flame. Nestor Numanis. Quentyn's cheeks flushed, proud. Tyrion noticed tears on the cheeks of an old septa. Daenerys bowed her head. House Targaryen remembers Dorne's loyalty and loss. I come to forge future, not relive tragedies. Together we break chains of crown forged in cruelty. Applause erupted. Arianne Martell stepped forward, sleek as desert cat in copper silk. She offered Daenerys a goblet of water drawn from Blackmont snow-fed spring, symbol of pure alliance. They drank. That evening, feast under lemon trees. Tables laden with stuffed dates, spiced lamb, Dornish red flowing like rubies. Minstrels plucked vibrant chords. Dancers wound between torchlit pillars. Yet beneath celebration lay tension. Quentyn a hero, but Rhaegal's shadow loomed. Sand snakes eyed each other, uncertain which vision of vengeance now guided Dorne. Tyrion found refuge at Low Fountain where Prince Doran rested. The elder Martell's voice rasped from gout pain, but his mind gleamed. Peace hinges on speed, Doran said. Stormlands teeter. Grams of Mistwood declare for my nephew Aegon if rumor holds. But they abhor Lannisters still. If dragons secure storms end swiftly, lords will bend knee. Delay, and they cling to familiar lion fear. That be not. Tyrion nodded. We sail within week, seize a dragonstone en route, then strike storms end before autumn storms churn Blackwater. Speed is both blade and shield. Doran's gaze sharpened. And after, King's Landing bleeds secrets. Do not underestimate High Sparrow's zeal. He squeezed Tyrion's hand. I have heard things. Prophecy of a younger queen who shall cast down. Tyrion sighed. Prophecies are tinder. Dragons are spark. We'll quench flames with pragmatism. Then, Doran smiled thinly. Pray pragmatism survives. During dusk's last embers, Quentyn asked Tyrion to join him atop ramparts overlooking lagoon. Wind stirred citrus blossoms. Distant love songs drifted from banquet. I never believed homecoming could feel so strange, Quentyn confessed. I have dreamed of it through sands, across seas. But returning astride a dragon makes me outsider in my own birthland. They stare with more fear than pride. They'll learn to trust, Tyrion said. Fear fades when bread returns and taxes drop. Quentyn looked downward. I wish Arianne would speak to me beyond ceremony. She keeps distance as though Rhaegal's flame might scorch her gown. Tyrion hummed. Sisters often need time to welcome changed brothers. Give her days, give her laughter. He left the prince there. Silhouette etched against star-silvered sea. Where? 7 dawns later, the combined force sailed north. Dornish tribute fleet, Targaryen armada, and handful of Taroshi warships, purchased with Iron Bank credit. Dragons patrolled heavens. Word preceded them. Coastal villages lit signal beacons for miles. Some beacons were greetings, some warnings. Dragonstone fell almost without resistance. Lannister garrison of 80 surrendered after Rhaegal charged Scorpion battery, and Drogon perched upon broken parapet, roaring high enough to shake ash from old painted table chambers. Daenerys spent one night in Ancestral Fortress, a bittersweet pilgrimage to halls where her forebears had planned conquest. She lit torches in Chapel of the Seven to honor those lost to rebellion. Rhaenys and Aegon, Ilya and Viserys, perhaps even Rhaegar. In throne rooms shaped like dragon's maw, she unsheathed Blackfire, sword Quentyn had found among Euron's trophies, and laid it upon cracked obsidian to remind the world which bloodline reclaimed home. While dragons roosted on rooftop spines, Tyrion pored over Storm's End maps, marking ballista positions and supply tunnels. He liaised with Davos, who reached Dragonstone stealthily aboard fishing skiff to petition on behalf of Stannis Baratheon, still fighting war in North. Davos, gaunter than memories of Blackwater, knelt before Daenerys with humility. My king bends knee to the living flame that stands against dead frost, he said, voice raw. He asks aid. Food for North, arms to Winterfell. White walkers break through Eastwatch, he says. His hand shook. I have seen whites and snows beyond wall. They march south. Cold pricked Tyrion's nape. Rumors of white figures in darkness had flickered across letters for months, disregarded as northern superstition. Now Devas's eyes told different truth. Daenerys listened grave. We sail to King's Landing first, she said. But the North's cry will not be ignored. She turned to Tyrion. When Storm's End is ours, dispatch raven-bearing ships north with grain. Simultaneously, letters to Jon Snow reached Winterfell via Maester Crows. Invitations to treat with Queen in Dragonstone. Alliances sealed in fire and ice. Whether Raven survived storms, no one yet knew. Storm's End loomed 3 nights later, walls glistening like wet iron under storm clouds. Golden Company banners flew, 3-headed black dragon inverted, signifying Blackfire or something like it. Ziga lines ringed outer causeway guarded by catapults. Tyrion stood on quarterdeck of Drummond Queen's Mercy as ships formed crescent in Bay Dai. He scanned ramparts through Myrish lens, noting lack of common greens. In courtyard, a boy of 17 paced wearing silver armor chased with rubies. Aegon the Sea, or a pretender. By his side struts Sir John Connington, copper hair thinning, expression proud and desperate. The sight stirred in Tyrion a pang of empathy. Here another child hammered by legacies, brandishing a name heavy enough to crush spine. Daenerys mounted Drogon. Parley first, she told Tyrion. If boy yields, fewer graves dig. She flew inland, landing within bowshot of gates, Rhaegal flanking. Tyrion, Quentyn, and small envoy followed on foot under white banner. Rain threatened, thunder muttering overhead. Battle lines parted. Golden Company spear points lowered, but did not attack. Aegon met them upon drawbridge planked with sodden oak. Dak. Close now, Tyrion saw Targaryen's features. Dusky violet eyes, fine silver gold hair, straight nose, too perfect, as if sculptor consulted lore lines. Yet compassion flickered there. Daenerys dismounted, cloak swirling. She and boy studied each other, two storms, one nascent, one matured. "I am Aegon," he announced, voice carrying across ring of pikemen. "Son of Rhaegar. The throne is mine." Daenerys' gaze saddened. "If true, you are blood of my blood. I offer not steel but embrace. Let us free realm together." Jon Connington interjected. "Hay needs no guardian. Balerian's wings overshadow his claim, but dragons alone do not birth kings." Tyrion stepped forward. "But dragons unchallenged birth peace. Better siblings than charcoal." Aegon hesitated. Lightning crackled. Rain spat. His eyes flicked to Drogon. Massive. Patient. Then to Rhaegal, then back to Daenerys. He swallowed visibly. "Share rule? Share burden," Daenerys said. She extended hand. Connington hissed something, but thunder drowned. Still, Aegon heard. Conflicted, he drew breath. At that moment, distant horns sounded from north side of castle. A splinter group of Stormlander knights loyal to Renly perhaps, surged across lower causeway to attack Golden Company flank, misinterpreting stalemate as weakness. Crossbow bolts whistled. Chaos ignited. Instinct overcame conversation. Guards rushed, shouts soared. Drogon reared, spewing warning column of flame skyward. Reflex among Golden Company. Scorpions loosed. A bolt clanged off Rhaegal's neck scale. Shallow but bleeding. The green dragon roared, tail lashing stone crenel. Quentyn fought to steady. Aegon shouted for ceasefire, but command lost. Panicked archers knocked again. Daenerys' eyes flashed heartbreak and fury. She gestured to Tyrion, retreat. Tyrion tugged her arm. They backpedaled toward neutral space while Drogon slithered forward, unleashing gout that incinerated Scorpion and crew. Soldiers scattered like ants before kicked anthill. Connington seized Aegon's shoulder, dragging him back inside portcullis. Gates slammed. Ziga resumed. Rhaegal, wounded, shrieked but still aloft. Quentyn guided him back. Arrow embedded shallow in scale. Medical maesters awaited behind lines with boiling wine. Night fell thick with tension. Inside command tent, Tyrion watched Daenerys pace, grief swirling around her like cloak of cinders. "I offered peace," she whispered, fists white-knuckled. They answered with fear. Tyrion rubbed forehead. "Fear blinds." The boy looked willing until chaos intervened. "Nautum, chaos we did not sow," she replied, yet fury licked voice. "Which means we can yet salvage." Tyrion set cup down. "Tomorrow we send secret envoy to Connington. Offer terms if they stand aside. Provide safe escort north. They face White Walkers same as we." Daenerys closed eyes. "One more chance. After that," Tyrion finished. "Storm's end becomes furnace." Within hours, ravens flew with messages of truce. By dawn, Connington responded. "Abide by stand down if Daenerys vows to present unified claim with Aegon and marry him." An impossible tangle. Daenerys rejected marriage, but offered council seat and recognition as Prince of Dragonstone. Negotiations seesawed while rain hammered tents. Inside fortress, Connington's health failing, grayscale rumor, desperation spike. Worse, Cersei's fleet under Admiral Helena Grafton sailed from King's Landing to relieve Stronghold, scorpions mounted on decks. On third dawn, crows reported sails near Cape Wrath. Lion banners driving east with favorable wind. Time evaporated. Tyrion convened War Council. If lions arrived, Golden Company might hold until relief. Altering political calculus. Decision hardened, take castle swiftly. Plan born. Night infiltration through culvert discovered by Davos in earlier life, smuggling onions. Unsullied sappers to breach Seagate. Dothraki to storm yard, dragons to suppress battlements. Evening of assault, Tyrion donned boiled leather. lion pin buffed until shining. He marched with Grey Worm's vanguard along narrow tidal ledge, waves slapping calves, lanterns hooded, moonless sky, blank as pitch. Within culvert smell of rot and seawater mingled. Cats scurried. Unsullied placed silent crossbows. At count of 10, Grey Worm's knife cut throat of sentry. Gates lifted, infiltration poured. On rampart scorpions stood unmanned. Surprise near total. But Connington rallied defenders to inner yard. Targaryen loyalists and Golden Company clashed in swirl of banners. Arrows rained from murder holes. Tyrion climbed parapet to signal dragons. Torch flared blue. Drogon dove, flame roaring across upper wall, melting parapet stones into slag. Yet he spared center keep. Rhaegal circled outward, breathing short bursts to scatter archers. Within keep, Aegon confronted Daenerys. He had rushed outside under arrowstorm as flames danced. Face streaked with soot, crown askew. "End this slaughter," he cried. "I yield Storm's End if you swear realm's welfare above pride." Daenerys, hair whipping in updraft, regarded him with sorrow. "Pride has no seat here. The realm sees 2 dragons. They will fear division. Stand with me before a throne." Aegon's shoulders slumped, weight of expectations collapsing. He drew sword, sign of surrender, and knelt. Connington, arriving coughing blood, tried to intervene but soldiers held him back. Peace sealed by dragonfire, forging new oath. Aegon to ride north, with portion of Golden Company aiding war against dead, leaving throne quest in abeyance. Daenerys to crown him Prince of Summer Isles upon victory. Agreement uneasy, but bloodless after first clash. Meanwhile, Lannister fleet sighting dragons lingering off coast, turned west rather than risk conflagration. Victory, though fragile. Tyrion oversaw castle triage, wounded on both sides treated, dead counted. He watched Connington carried away, face gray, grayscale creeping. The man's eyes fixed on Aegon with paternal devotion, even as disease ravaged. Tyrion felt pang. Fathers' failures often inherit children. By new moon, banners of 3-headed dragon rose above Storm's End, and raven flights carried news across realm. Dragons returned, alliances forged. War for Dawn now overshadowed Iron Throne games. Yet King's Landing remained, wildfire cache thick beneath streets. Faith militant sharpening prayers, Cersei perched upon jagged steel. From Storm's End vantage, Tyrion traced path along Stormland's coast to mouth of Blackwater. Crossroads of battles to come. He knew each step would echo louder. He only hoped bread would outpace blood. One evening, he sat on battlement, alone. Drogon roosted on tower top. Stars glittered. Footsteps. Daenerys approached, cloak snapping. "Cold wind," she said. "Harbinger," he answered. She folded arms. "We ride for King's Landing next moon. But my heart drifts north, to snow and silent shapes." Tyrion exhaled white plume. "Conquest means nothing if winter swallows all. Perhaps we liberate throne then march for Winterfell at once. And if Cersei unleashes wildfire as we depart, the city might burn." Nendanar. He stared at distant dark horizon. Cities can rebuild. The dead rebuild nothing. She touched his shoulder. Weight of trust. "Help me choose which lives to risk." "I will," he said. "Even when choice breaks us." They stood together beneath dragon shadow, listening to sea hush against ancient stone, aware that waves eroded even castles, yet never ceased. That fire could forge but also consume. Tyrion thought of small folk waking to rumors of dragons and dead, of bakers kneading dough, of children chasing butterflies among graves. He vowed again to weave bread with flame, to chart path between ruin and rebirth. Far off, Rhaegal trumpeted. A clarion in star-spun velvet dot. Answering roar of Drogon rolled like rolling thunder. Prophets might claim they heralded apocalypse, but Tyrion heard something else entirely. Possibility, raw and untamed, beating sky with vast wings. He lifted face to breeze, carrying mingled scents of salt, ash, and blooming lemon. Tomorrow, they would plan sieges and treaties. Tonight he allowed hope to settle, fragile as dew on obsidian scale. Glimmering before dawn burned it to memory. The realm's axis had shifted thrice already, yet he sensed one more turn lay just ahead, where dragons would bleed, ice would burn, and a dwarf who once loved books more than battle would write his final verse upon the living pages of history. He whispered a silent toast to uncertain dawns, then joined the queen to descend spiral stairs, leaving starlit heights to dragons and the patient night. Word count 5,560. He. The winter raven arrived at dawn, its black feathers rimed with frost. Though it had flown hard from the east, it beat across Storm's End's drab stone courtyard, circled once above the snow-dusted bastions that crowned the drum tower, and then alighted upon the gauntlet of Sir Bar Emin, the lonely knight who had volunteered for watch duty after his leg wound refused to heal. He hurried the bird to the great hall, where Tyrion Lannister, still bleary-eyed from drafting last night's provisioning orders, read the message first. He felt the words freeze his breath in his throat. Castle Black has fallen. East Watch abandoned. Whites pour through the gorge. The Night King rides a new horror, an ice dragon with wings that scream like blizzards and breath colder than murdered moonlight. The wall is broken at the Shadow Tower. I ride south with all who live. John Dotut. Tyrion reread the raven strip of vellum, as though his eyes might melt the ice injected into his blood. He shut them, hearing candle wax drip. When he reopened them, nothing had changed save for the tremble in his fingers. He felt smaller than ever. Smaller even than when Shay had called him her Giant of Lannister. Smaller than when he faced his father's crossbow bolt. Smaller than when he fled King's Landing cellars with murder in his wake. He had thought the world vast and terrible when dragons returned. He had been a child measuring a single tide. Jon Snow rides south, the wall is down, and the dead have dragons of their own. The oil lamps guttered as a draft prowled the hall. Daenerys Targaryen strode in before Tyrion found breath enough to summon her. She wore a simple leather jerkin over mail, snow spattered from her dawn patrol. Astride Drogon. Rime still clung to her eyelashes, sparkling silver. She asked no greeting. She read the letter in Tyrion's shaking grip. When she finished, her violet eyes closed briefly, as if in prayer or fury. "He died," she whispered, voice hoarse, "to guard that wall. Now it is rubble." "Jon lives," Tyrion said. His voice cracked, hope and fear crossing blades inside his throat. "He rides south. That means others survive, the wildlings, the Watch remnants. Perhaps Tormund Giantsbane. They may reach Winterfell." "Medicine unwatered." "They may," she echoed, but her gaze drifted upward, past roof beams, into unreachable cold. "An ice dragon." The words were a ghost-given tongue. They tasted of despair. Before he could respond, the hall doors shook open. Quentyn Martell hurried across rush-strewn flags, Arianne and Grey Worm, and Ser Jorah a pace behind. All carried expressions that knew the truth. Ravens had gone to several hands. "There is little time," Grey Worm said quietly. "Scouts report Cersei's forces dig outside King's Landing, planting scorpions far as Chequy-Water. If we are to strike, we strike now." "Lie so." Tyrion met Daenerys's gaze. "Or return north," he murmured, "to meet winter with fire." "No." A voice sharp as shattered obsidian cracked across the hall. Aegon, still flushed from dawn drills, stepped from side door, hair damp with sweat. "We stand so close. King's Landing buckles. Cersei rules with fear alone. Dragons at her gate, and she crumbles. Seize the throne, then we ride north with realm's strength behind us." Jorah snorted. "Realm's strength may prove ash when Winter King sweeps south. Dragons may burn whites," Aegon countered. "But men with full bellies and stout hearts hold lines. We need the Riverlands, Crownlands, the Reach." Tyrion raised a hand, though his heart hammered. "If we ride for King's Landing, we gamble time. The North bleeds this very hour. What good is throne if subjects rise as corpses?" Throne is beacon? Aegon insisted, voice quavering. Torch the dead cannot snuff. Without unity, every castle will shudder, and the North's doom will become the South's folly. Daenerys glanced from him to Tyrion. Silence hummed. In that hush, Tyrion recalled a night aboard Balerion, when she'd said, "Hold me to the realm's welfare above pride." He inhaled. "Your Grace," he said softly, "the choice is stark. Save the living now, or save the kingdom later. Every raven we've seen shows winter outrunning ravens themselves. We risk nothing less than humankind." She looked at him, and something fragile crossed her face. Uncertainty Daenerys Stormborn had not allowed others to glimpse since the day her dragons hatched. But she nodded, once, though tears threatened. "Rhaegal is still healing," Quentyn offered. "Viserion unclaimed. Drogon cannot burn two fronts. We need allies with Valyrian steel. We need Winterfell's forges. We need—" A horn split the air outside. They rushed to battlements. Across restless waves, a single Tyroshi galley limped toward Storm's end deck, dragging half-collapsed mast. From its bow, a blood-soaked banner of the Golden Rose hung limp over hull scars charred black. A skiff cut loose, rowing hard. Upon its prow slumped a woman in torn green velvet. Minutes later, her boots scraped courtyard mud. Sansa Stark, hair matted with blood and seawater, stumbled from the skiff and into arms of two unsullied. Her lips trembled. "The Night King has crossed the neck," she whispered. "White Harbor burns. Bran is missing. Arya fights to hold Winterfell. My family calls to the Queen of Dragons. Help us." Chaos broke with those words. Plans once measured in siege-turning weeks dissolved in heartbeats. Everything moved then like dream and nightmare stitched into single tapestry. Dragons soared before dawn's violet. Supply wagons rattled through courtyard arches, hastily abandoning siege lines around Storm's End. The Golden Company, half swayed by Aegon's insistence, half cowed by dragonfire, split its forces. 20 banners rode north with Daenerys under Rhaegal's wings. Half remained as Aegon's vanguard to forestall Cersei's southern thrust. Tyrion wrung concessions. Food stores emptied from Summerhall's granaries. Wagons of grain bound for the Rose Road's snowy verge. Dornish spears joined, cloaks bright against snow. Cersei's watchers on Blackwater Heights observed dragons wheel northward and scented weakness, sending ravens to Lannisport. They failed to see Balerion's hull vanish into river mists. Tyrion's ploy to feint riverborne assault, while real war galloped across King's Road. 3 days into March, snow thickened. Dornish men unaccustomed to frost shivered beneath leather, yet they pressed. Daenerys rode Drogon overhead, scanning white horizon for flares of white fires. Tyrion rode behind Grey Worm's column on a shaggy Garin named Old Lemon. The dwarf wore furs cut from Summer Island panther, borrowed from Illyria's wardrobe. The pelt dwarfed him so completely that Quentyn joked he looked more bear than lion. Days blurred into pallid haze. Villages lay abandoned to wind's howl, doors ajar, empty cradles rocking, ink-black handprints on frosted walls. They did not linger. By 7th day, ravens from Winterfell met them. Jon Snow survived, retreating from Last Hearth to Moat Cailin, battered but fighting withdraw. Night King's horde split, one column following King's Road, others sweeping west to Seaguard. Rumor named Direwolf ghosts ravaging White Scouts. Rumor named Arya, a shadow dancing on ramparts. Each rumor fed hearts battered by miles. Night fell near the ruined holdfast of Queen's Crown. Fires dotted treeline. Grey Worm deployed scouts. What returned chilled blood more than wind. Living men, black cloaks, half-shattered vows. The Night's Watch survivors. They shambled into camp, eyes sunken. Among them Davos Seaworth, bearing Maester Conwyn's bandaged ledger of dead. Eastwatch Commander Mallister, Pikes By and Flint, Jane Poole of Wintertown, dozens more. But also living, Tormund Giantsbane, beard-rhymed, wearing giant's toe necklace. Sandor Clegane, gaunt but alive, shoulder-bitten, refusing to speak of Beric Dondarrion's last stand beneath a white weirwood. And Jaime Lannister, one-handed, draped in grey fur, sword of Valyrian steel strapped across chest. His eyes found Tyrion across firelight, twin orbs of shame and determination. Tyrion approached slowly. Brothers once, enemies once. Now? Jaime spoke first. I left her. I left Cersei the night she set wildfire under Flea Bottom. Couldn't watch innocents burn again. Rode north to pay debt my sword owed dead boy. I never knew. Notkin? Tyrion's breath curled white. You saved a kingdom once from wildfire. Perhaps twice as charm. Jaime's shoulders sagged. I fear I own no charms left. Tyrion laid hand on his stump gently. We do what we can. When Daenerys emerged from command tent to meet the newcomers, moonlight lit her hair like bleached flame. Jaime knelt. Old Golden Lion bowed to Dragon Queen. She studied him long. No words, only nod. Jon Snow arrived next dusk leading battered hosts of North and Vale. He looked older, hair silvered at temples by frost and grief. When he dismounted by firelight and gazed up at Daenerys, something passed between them. Sorrow, relief, guilt, hope. Tyrion greeted him like brother. My lord, my king, my friend. Jon clasped his forearm. We have no kings now. Only living and dead. Council convened within tattered barns ringed by flickering torches. Map laid on hay bale. The neck half seized by whites. Last hearth black cinder. Moat Caelan contested. Winterfell stands, barely. Provisions. 2 days grain. Dragonglass. Crates from Dragonstone, but not enough for host. Valyrian blades. Handful dead eye. Dragons. One mighty, one healing, one unclaimed. Ice dragon. Unknown, rumored near White Harbor. Plan formed. Race to Winterfell, reinforce, lure Night King to open field near Weeping Water where both Drogon and Rhaegal could strike from air. Prepare trenches of wildfire jellied in sealed clay pots. Cersei's stolen hoard repurposed northward by Tyrion's secret agents in King's Landing. Jaime to lead cavalry flank with Brienne, a reunion silent yet steadied by mutual respect. Jon and Daenerys to command center. Tyrion to coordinate reserves and incendiaries. A single night to breathe. Snow fell soft, muffling camp. Tyrion at fire scribbling last letters. To Varys back at Storm's End. To Sansa within Winterfell. To Podrick Payne, now sworn knight, instructing him to sing if Dawn survived. Brienne approached, still tall and steadfast. She handed him small flask. Honeymead warmed cautious hearts. They spoke of Pod's simple courage, of Jaime's penance, of Hodor, whose memory stung them both. When she left, Tyrion stared into Cole's, seeing faces. Shay Tywin Oberyn, Jorah's late wife, the ant-infested Samsung TV, that once seemed world's largest woe. Perspective is dragon's gift. He slept little. And in their Sew Hall. March resumed. The columns snaked across snowbound marshes, where reeds jutted frozen spears through ice, across the ruined crossing at Moat Caelan, now charred trench of burned whites. At daybreak fourth day, they crested ridge above Winterfell's windswept fields. Smoke coils rose from gutted barns outside walls, but ramparts stood, defiant in gloom. Stark banners drooped heavy with hoarfrost alongside Manderley silver mermaids and Arryn falcons. Watchhorns blew, gates parted. Arya Stark rode out on black mare, hair matted, eyes feral bright. She dismounted, hugging Sansa, Jon, Brienne in turn before greeting Daenerys with curt nod. When she met Tyrion, she only said, "Strange bedfellows for the end of the world." "You forget," Tyrion replied. "I slept once in quite small beds. The end might fit there too." A crooked grin flickered before urgency reclaimed her. She guided them in. Inside Winterfell's courtyard. Forges roared day and night, melting dragonglass into arrowheads, spear tips. Gendry waters oversaw bellows, biceps caked in soot and frost alike. Davos passed out black bread baked from barley, stale yet precious. Samwell Tarly, robes cinched with rope belt, hauled tomes from Winterfell Library to Great Hall where he cross-referenced spells of fire and ice, muttering about Old Town archmaesters ignoring apocalypse signs. Isirian, still unclaimed, landed within God's wood glade, curling around Heart Tree like albino serpent, emitting lonely croons. No volunteer dared approach. Arya whispered the weirwood might claim him, if man could not. Night King was 2 days behind, word said, crossing last river at fords near Shivering Wood. The ice dragon, blue-flamed and terrible, raised white harbor wharves, but then turned inland, as if guided by beacon no man saw. Tyrion prayed Winterfell's walls would hold long enough for plan. They prepared. Jon knelt in crypts before Lyanna's statue, whispering apology for truths he'd discovered. Truths he'd withheld from Daenerys, from North, truths that no longer mattered when death marched. Daenerys stood above in battlements, feeling wind lash her cheeks, remembering Koth's searing heat, Meereen's jasmine nights. Tyrion spent dawn to dusk mapping trenches, supervising wildfire pots placed under fresh snow near River Bend. Bran Stark, eyes milky, voice afar, rode a wheeled chair into courtyard to speak with ravens perched upon his arms, telling Tyrion the Night King sought him, that he was Ice King's memory mirror. Tyrion shivered at boy's calm. Evening before battle, commanders met in old war room, whose walls bore scratch marks from Bolton's flayed man banners. Jon outlined positions. Unsullied front line before trench. Dothraki to charge flank with dragonglass scythes. Knights of the Vale behind. Wildlings as skirmishers. Dragons overhead. Jaime recommended triple caltrops of dragonglass behind first retreat line. Grey Worm promised Unsullied would not break. Tormund laughed, bear-like. If we die warm in dragonfire. Silence followed. Tyrion tapped, map. Dot. The ice dragon. We cannot risk dragons entangled mid-air before Night King appears. Rhaegal remains grounded until Drogon engages. If Night King rides the beast, Drogon must lure him above trenches, where wildfire buried will ignite skyward blast. Nan. Him. Daenerys nodded reluctantly. Arya volunteered to lure whites to choke points, wearing faces of silent men she had harvested across battlefields. Sansa braced to oversee evacuation tunnels beneath crypts. Plan set. They dispersed. Tyrion walked God's wood paths under ghost light. Snowflakes fluttered, melting against Viserion's pale scales as he slumbered. Tyrion rested hand on trunk of Heart Tree, feeling rough bark beneath glove. He whispered prayer to gods he'd never believed, asking them to keep Tamika safe in world far away, to grant Jordan Hornery quiet nights once dragons flew free of pages. When he left, he found Jaime waiting near Broken Well. Remember when we dreamed of Casterly Rock? Jaime murmured. Seems lifetime. Tyrion traced snow with boot. If we survive, perhaps we build new castle, less gold, more warmth. Jaime smiled faint. A place for broken men and dragons. Ale better be strong, Tyrion said. Child. Battle came in silence first. Dawn refused to rise. Before sky lightened a fraction, a hush like world's last breath descended. Even dragons stilled. Then came ice-cracking distant river. Then crunch of thousand steps. Then faint blue glow flickered on horizon. Whites poured across snowscape like ant swarm. Giants hulking, dead horses dragging blue frost intestines, children twisted into crawling husks. Unsullied locked shields. Dothraki unsheathed dragonglass araks, shimmering black-violet. Dot-on. Horns sounded thrice. Daenerys mounted Drogon. Jon climbed behind her. 2 riders, 1 purpose. Rhaegal, with Quentyn, waited restless near stables. First charge collided. Dragonglass bit undead, but numbers swallowed ground. Dothraki lightbringers, their blades aflame with sorceress oil Melisandre left behind, charged into snowstorm, carving swath until White Bear crushed vanguard. Ghost, Jon's direwolf, howled and leapt, tearing undead throats. Tyrion watched from rampart near wildfire trench ignition ropes. He clutched flint, waiting for Grey Worm's banner signal. Blue roar split sky. The ice dragon burst through clouds, scales glassy cyan, wings crackling frost. Night King upon its back, spear of frozen dragon bone in hand. Drogon ascended, fire blooming red gold. When flames met ice breath, Explosion of steam and shards painted heaven. Tyrion yanked rope. Wildfire pits erupted, green gouts surging high, immolating hundreds of wights. But Night King steered Ice Dragon above conflagration. Frost breath extinguished some flames, forging steam sheet that blinded archers. Rhaegal launched. Quentyn guided him, rising through fog. They struck Ice Dragon's flank, teeth-rending scale. Night King poised spear but wounded wing, forced beast to spiral. Drogon seized moment, raked talons across ice scale, sending shards raining. On ground Bran, seated beneath Heart Tree, eyes white, warged ravens swirling sky to distract Ice Dragon's gaze. The undead giant's smirk crashed through gatehouse. But Hound set lantern of wildfire to its beard. Green bloom felled giant. Still dead pushed. Tyrion oversaw secondary trenches. When Grey Worm signaled retreat, he cut line. Flames roared. Unsullied, filed back with formation, perfect despite losses. Yet Whites hurled themselves on fire, forming bridge of burning bodies across moat. They clambered. Night King dove again on Ice Dragon, loosing hail of ice spikes at Drogon. One shattered near Tyrion's rampart. Shard sliced cheek. He wiped blood. Above, Jon leapt from Drogon's saddle onto rampart parapet, and ran toward breach where Whites surged through dying flames. Valyrian steel glimmered. Beside him Jaime swung Oathkeeper, golden hand clutching shield strapped to stump. Arya whirled twin blades, Gendry hammered undead skulls. Tyrion ignited last line of wildfire as King and the Knights swooped toward Godswood. Blue fire met red, carving dark sky. Within courtyard Bran's eyes closed black, ravens scattering. Viserion stirred at base of Heart Tree, unleashing mournful cry. Tyrion scrambled down steps, mind racing. If living dragon stands idle, Night King will claim him. He approached Viserion timid, dragonglass dagger in hand, but to protect, not slay. Dragon opened gold-green eyes, pupils round. Tyrion recalled story of outsider riders. He tossed dagger aside, extended trembling palm. Remember Valyria before doom. He whispered nonsense, voice cracked. Remember sky, not tomb. Viserion's head lowered inches. Smoke exhaled, warm even in icy wind. Tyrion stepped, grasped ridge. Hauled his dwarfish body upon pale neck. Leather creaking into long unused saddle rings, still fastened since Meereen. No time to think. He tugged sideways, dragon obeyed. They lifted, clearing Godswood canopy in rush of wind. Tyrion's heart hammered terror joy. He shouted hoarse, guiding Viserion to flank Ice Dragon from below. Night King spotted new threat. Eyes like glacial fissures widened. He urged mount downward, mouth opening to exhale frost blast. Drogon intercepted, colliding midair, jaws closing on Ice Dragon's throat. Frost blast diverted skyward, freezing ravens into crystal statues. Rhaegal bit wounded wing. Tyrion urged Viserion into spiral around enemy, breathing golden flame into Ice Dragon's exposed belly where scale cracked from Rhaegal's bite. Fire met frost. Shell exploded, shards barbed Dane swords of blue glass raining. Night King lurched, losing seat. He plummeted into wildfire-charred courtyard. Jon sprinted, dragging Valyrian blade through snow. Night King rose from crater, frost-forming armor shards. Clash of living steel and dead magic lit courtyard. Night King parried, spear whipping arcs of cold. Jon staggered, sword chipped on ice wrist guard. Jaime joined, Oathkeeper striking from flank but shattering shards only. Arya vaulted from pile of dead, plunging catspaw dagger of Valyrian steel toward Night King's back. Blocked but drew bloodless fissure. Bran in chair pushed by Sam, emerged from gatehouse as if guided by fate. Night King's gaze locked on boy. He advanced. Tyrion landed Viserion beside Broken Well. He dismounted, fumbling for dragonglass dagger he'd abandoned earlier. None. Instead his lion-pommeled dagger of plain steel remained. Useless. Yet he stepped before Bran. Dwarfish silhouette dwarfed further by Night King's towering form. Night King raised spear. Ghost lunged from snow, teeth clamping dead calf. Spear missed Tyrion. Glancing stone. Jaime interposed shield. Jon drove sword between armor plates, but blade stuck. White pressing from behind forced him down. It happened then, in heartbeat. Drogon and Rhaegal landed behind Night King, wings mantling. Blocking, Mund. Bran raised trembling hand. Ravens, freed of white control, swarmed sky spiraling around Ice King. Arya dove again, dropping dagger. Night King turned, catching her by throat midair. Dagger slipped from her left hand to right. But, before she could strike, a roar thundered, Viserion's cry. Night King's ice dragon, fatally wounded, crashed onto Keep's roof behind. Shockwaves shuddered courtyard. The moment's distraction loosened his grip. Jaime seized fallen dragonglass spear from White. He drove stump of golden hand forward, wedging spear tip between Night King's ribs, past ice, into heart of winter. Spear erupted blue light, then black fissures. Night King's chest cracked. Entire form fissured like brittle lake ice. He looked at Jaime with what might have been surprise, at Tyrion, at Bran, and shattered in screamless burst. A wave of frost wind swept outward, extinguishing blue glow in White's. Silence. One by one undead collapsed. Battle ended. Morning came pale rose. Snowflakes fell lazily. Winterfell's courtyard echoed with sobs. Cheers, wails. Survivors embraced. Fires smoldered. Dragons coiled around each other, licking wounds, steaming crimson on snow. Tyrion sat on broken stair, bloody hands trembling, world tilting dot. Jaime approached, dragging wounded leg, still clutching stump-spear dragonglass, now melted half. They looked at each other, two lions ragged, alive. "You killed him," Tyrion whispered. "Kingslayer twice," Jaime murmured, voice raw dot. "No," Tyrion said, blinking tears. "Savior once." Nearby Daenerys knelt beside Jon, both exhausted. They clasped foreheads, grief and gratitude washing. Arya hugged Sansa. Bran closed eyes, ravens landing gentle upon shoulders. Viserion nudged Tyrion softly. He touched pale muzzle. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking. Dragon chuffed. Warm breath, thawing frozen snot. Grey worm marshaled unsullied to douse fires. Gendry hammered boards into stretchers. Sandor lit pipe, staring at wan sun, ignoring him. By noon, pyres lined outer yard. Whites burned once more. Melancholy mingled with hope. Wildlings sang low dirges promising mead halls beyond shattered ice. In Great Hall, lords gathered. Manderly, Glover, Royce, Tarly's bastard son allied with Reach rebels. They knelt before Daenerys and Jon together, pledging tongues and swords, though future debate of crowns would come. Tyrion drafted treaty. Kingdoms allied under dual regency until Long Night's ashes cooled. Jaime stood witness, Arya etched direwolf across parchment corner. Bran murmured history weaving. That night, feast of meager rations tasted grand. Tyrion drank moderate, telling jokes about ant-infested televisions to baffled wildlings chanting, "Little lion fierce." Tamika would laugh, he thought. Later he found quiet atop crenellation, where he first glimpsed Ice Dragon's breath. Snow swirled. Viserion perched beside. Drogon sword loops with Rhaegal under waxing moon. Sky free. Daenerys joined, cloak flapping. They shared moment of wordless awe. "I do not know what tomorrow brings," she said. "Nothing promised," Tyrion replied. "Yet tonight, living breathe." She looked down at him, tears gleaming, and placed hand on his shoulder. "You rode dragon, faced death, saved prince. Once you said gods love a joke." He chuckled. "If so, they laugh heartily tonight." Distant horns signaled arrival of reinforcements from Riverlands. Living answered call long after death's wail fell silent. Battles for thrones lay ahead, but realm's heartbeat. Tyrion breathed deep of freezing air tinged with smoke and pine. He closed eyes. In darkness behind lids, he saw roads unspooled to King's Landing. Saw bread ovens built from melted collars. Saw children free of masters and monsters alike. He whispered to Void, "Let dawn come bright." In east, beyond ragged clouds, first blush of sunrise painted sky gold and scarlet. Colors of Lannister and Targaryen united. Dragons wheeled through light, roaring promise. Tyrion smiled, small and tired, but earnest. For the first time since books taught him dragons were extinct, he believed the tale might end, not with doom but with beginning. Word count, Hufi 5242.